of there. I'm Apple Bloom.
Before the story starts, the sequels to this story will be in the description below. Like and subscribe, and thank you. Batman Restarts by the Clown Prince of Crime. The prologue, Fear Survives. Intro. A black shadowy cloud fills the whole sky. Suddenly, a green orb appears, while surrounded by a purple flame. The orb grows larger and larger until it morphs into a bat insignia. After 5 seconds, it vanishes along with its dark cloud. Intro end. It was midnight in the ever-busy city of Gotham. Its streets were filled with police cruisers blaring with amber lights and sirens. Speaking of which, there were 3 of them patrolling one of the streets. Within the first cruiser sat 2 officers, whereas the other 2 cruisers had also each 2 officers. Is it really necessary to bring almost the entire police department to hunt down these criminals? Labe asked the young lieutenant. I want to make sure that these baddies do not get their filthy hands on Gotham's innocent people anywhere. Commissioner Labe yelled irritatedly. Crane will be nothing but a trapped mouse once we corner him on every side, Gordon. I have no doubt about that, Commissioner, agreed Gordon. It just seems a bit excessive to bring everyone on our side to apprehend them. Yeah, and calling on your buddy Batman is not unlawfully excessive to you, snapped Labe. Gordon was silent at the retort. Before Labe could further retort, Gordon received a call on his walkie-talkie. He picked it up and listened. We got 3 suspects on our sights. All units converge on 95th Street at Gotham City Bank. An officer alerted. Those criminals aren't getting away this time. Labe growled furiously. He hit the gas pedal hard enough to increase the speed of their vehicle. Gordon readied himself as he once more had to face the wanted criminals. I hope Batman arrives on time for this, Gordon whispered to himself, while Labe didn't hear him. At the Gotham Bank, 3 thugs, armed with submachine guns, held bags of money, and hid themselves behind the desks and doors within the offices of the main room. The officers that communicated with Gordon earlier loaded their service weapons, while searching for the thugs they spotted earlier. They scanned the main room with flashlights. The thugs made sure to not make a sound so to not arrest any attention from their pursuers. The officers looked everywhere, although they did not search deeper within the offices they checked. No suspects in sight yet. Check the other room, one of them reported. They cleared the main room, while still looking around to make sure if the suspects were behind them or not. Once the room was clear of the officers, the thugs emerged from their hiding spots and dashed to the side door that allowed them to exit the building with the huge bags of money they stole. They ran to the backside of the building, where their getaway van was waiting for them. 2 other thugs opened the doors for their 3 companions. The latter entered in, closed the doors, and then drove off. The van drove far away from the police cars, and went for the road, where there was barely any traffic. However, none of them noticed a dark interloping figure standing on top of a streetlight pole. Haha. We finally got away this time, one of the thugs said. Plus, we got what we needed, another thug said, pointing at the money they stole. This amount of money could last us for months if possible. I wonder what the boss is planning this time. Haven't you heard? He said that he wanted to build a powerful device that can be utilized to take over Gotham, the third thug informed. Really? That's what this money is for? That would explain why he told us to get as much money as possible. I mean, a doomsday device. That would require a lot of time and effort, the second thug said. Tell me about it. Dr. Crane really is vehemently determined to get back at Batman for humiliating him a few months ago. I don't blame him, the first thug added. I do wonder though, what type of machine does he really want to build anyway? We already tried the emitter that vaporized all the water supply filled with the fear toxin. So what now? The third thug wondered. The other thugs thought about it as well. After about half an hour of driving, they arrived at their secret hideout. They parked inside a small garage and exited the vehicle. They entered into an abandoned warehouse, where they had their criminal operations. Once they entered into the meeting room, where the rest of the thugs were gathered, they laid the bags of money on the ground right in front of their leader. But once they lifted their heads, they were shocked to see a huge device nearly fully constructed before them. Pleased to see that your little mission was a success, gentlemen," Crane said, getting up from his desk where he was examining something through a microscope. "Boss, is that the device you were speaking about?" the first thug spoke. "Precisely, Mr. Sass. This is what I call a portal generator. It has the ability to summon any source of power that we would require to take over Gotham. Say for instance we were to call a creature that could spread fear and terror into the hearts of its victims. That portal generator would do exactly that. Imagine that there would be hundreds of them that could tear apart even half of Gotham. Such an advantage would even overwhelm both the police and Batman." Dr. Crane explained. "How would you know that it won't malfunction?" "Because that could use up so much energy, if it could do that," the second thug asked. "You think I'm not a meticulous planner? I've spent months on this project with much money and time required. So rest assured that this device won't disappoint you," Dr. Crane replied. The criminals looked at each other concerned and unsure. Then they looked back at him. "Well, I didn't expect you to be almost finished with it." Sass spoke. "So what should we do with this then?" he asked, raising the money bags. Crane cracked a sinister smile. "Use it to obtain the resources we need. We wouldn't want to win this battle unarmed, now would we?" he said. "The power of fear must continue to survive, especially once equipped with its thorough preparation." Suddenly, a loud noise was heard. They all looked around with raised guns. Crane masked himself with his trademark scarecrow mask. "He's here," he said, looking up at the ceiling. The lights started to go out one by one. A small object hit the floor once half of the lights in the meeting room went dark. Scarecrow picked up the item and recognized it as a batarang. "Let's get this party started, shall we?" Without warning, the dark figure jumped down from the other side of the ceiling on two thugs. He landed on them hard, which caused them to be knocked unconscious. Scarecrow and his lackeys then turned on their attacker. "Your playtime is over, Crane. Arkham Asylum is the place you'll receive proper discipline and treatment," the man spoke intimidatingly. "I guess I'll teach you my personal definition of discipline and treatment, Batman. Get him." Scarecrow ordered. The vigilante raised his right arm to block the blow from a metal pipe of one of the thugs. He knocked him out after he snapped the pipe out of his hand. He landed a kick on another thug and dived beneath the thugs once they started firing on him. He raised his arms where the bullets bounced off his armor. With another batarang, he swung it on his left side, which then sharply turned and knocked the guns out of their hands, except Scarecrow. "Oh no, you don't!" Scarecrow yelled before shooting at the batarang. The bullet collided with the batarang, which caused the latter to bounce off of it, and struck the machine's power button. Electricity began to spark on all of the buttons, activating the device. A portal opened up in front of them, and started to suck up everything that was in the room. Everyone struggled not to be pulled in by the gravitational force. "We're about to get sucked in. I can't really act," one of the thugs screamed as he was sucked in. All of the criminals were sucked into the portal with Scarecrow and Batman as the last remaining. "Let me give you a dose of the fear that shall come," the villain shouted as he raised his right wrist to spray the fear toxin on Batman. But Batman quickly grabbed his grappling gun and shot its hook around Scarecrow's arm, blocking his spray. He tried to pull him away from the gravitational force, but it was too strong for him. He grunted as he pulled harder. Unfortunately, the force shook the whole ground they were holding on to, and pulled the remaining two into the portal. The portal then closed up, and shattered all the windows once it loudly closed itself. Gordon and his police allies arrived at the warehouse, too late. Chapter 1, A New World. Batman slowly awoke from his unconsciousness. He had a slight headache from the rough motion of the portal that took him from Gotham. Groaning in pain, he tried to get up on his feet, but he kept struggling to keep his balance. He held onto a nearby tree to help him remain standing. Then he opened his eyes to behold his surroundings. "Where am I?" asked the Dark Knight. He turned around to see trees and flowers that appeared to be fully animated somehow. Confused, he looked up to see the blue sky looking very cartoony along with its clouds. "Why does everything look so animated?" he asked again. But before he could investigate the environment, He remembered the task he was just occupied with not too long ago, fighting Scarecrow. He looked around to see if his determined adversary and his gang were with him on the ground. To his surprise, they weren't with him. Where did they go? They got to be here somewhere, he mused. He turned on his tracker to mark the location of Scarecrow and his thugs. The device successfully detected their location. It beeped once it had done it. They are quite far, but I'll still catch them. With that being said, he dashed off to find his enemies. Scarecrow and his men felt dizzy from being teleported through a portal. They all got up from the grass, though they too stumbled once they attempted to stand, and beheld their surroundings. What is this place? Where are we? He asked. It looks like we are in a forest, a tiny forest to be precise. Sass replied, turning his head back and forth to comprehend the environment. Ha! Are you kidding me? Being dragged to a cartoon? That's stupid, scoffed one of the thugs. Seriously, Stees, this is what it looks like. Sass replies back. That's what that portal was operated to do, Crane. To summon cartoons to take over Gotham. The other thugs laughed once he said those words. Scarecrow was unamused. I'm not a cartoon creator, my friend. I'm what they call an intellectual psychologist. Now if you're done questioning my portal, I would like us to investigate our surroundings. Scarecrow commanded. They all picked up their weapons, and walked toward a clear path within the forest. As they walked, they spotted several small animals that crawled on the ground. Startled to see strange bipedal creatures walking towards them, they scattered across the forest. Scarecrow chuckled at the sight. You see that, gentlemen? This is the blessing of fear. Whenever a human or creature beholds something terrifying he doesn't fully understand, he flees. Tyranny falls in comparison to fear itself, he lectured. Nice food for thought, but where's Batman? Wasn't he just with us just a moment ago before that whole portal problem? Stees asked. The thugs looked around with their weapons, drawn as soon as he mentioned him. Apparently, the portal took him elsewhere. However, time is of the essence. The sooner we discover where we are, the better. Scarecrow reminded. They continued to walk through the forest for the next half hour. Batman still kept running in pursuit of his foes. The tracker kept getting louder and louder the more he drew closer to their position. Suddenly, he stopped once he spotted them ahead. He hid behind the bushes to avoid being seen by them. The more they kept moving, the more Batman slowly moved from one bush to another. While doing so, he instantly remembered one person in his mind, Alfred. Batman knew that his faithful butler would be worried sick now that he was no longer in Gotham and possibly would not return to the Batcave anytime sooner. He tried to contact Alfred, to inform him of the unexpected situation. Alfred, can you hear me? He called. To his disappointment, the call went static. He tried again with the hope that Alfred would actually answer that time. Unfortunately, it had the same result. This environment is probably interfering with my signal to the Batcave. This is not good, he concluded. He then turned his attention back to Scarecrow. They still had their submachine guns drawn as they tried to find out where they all were. Batman kept his eyes on them to see what they were up to. If I manage to apprehend all of them, how will I be able to take them back to Gotham to face justice for their crimes, he thought. With no way out, we will all be stuck here, maybe, forever. The very thought froze him completely. Never in his life of crime fighting had he ever imagined being stuck in another dimension away from home, away from the people he had sworn to protect, and especially away from his closest allies, even Alfred, Gordon, and Rachel. He can't imagine what Gotham City would become if the Batman were absent completely. He thought of Jim Gordon being burdened and bombarded with fighting criminals on a daily basis, and being forced to rely on the corrupt officers who certainly did no better to keep Gotham safe and sound, especially Commissioner Labe, since he was antagonistic against vigilantes. He also thought of the love of his life, Rachel. He inwardly feared that Rachel would have no protector against the evils that endangered her life. He remembered how he saved her life from Carmine Falcone and his men. He remembered the words of wisdom she gave him a few months ago. It's not who you are underneath, but what you do that defines you. He also thought back on the moment they had together on the ruins of Wayne Manor after the death of Ra's al Ghul. If the day would come that Gotham will no longer need Batman, how would Bruce Wayne return to her to be together, if the Dark Knight is stuck in this strange world? This was very overwhelming for Batman to mentally handle. However, he was unwilling to give up despite how apparently dire the situation was. He kept his sight on the fugitives as they had no progress on their journey so far. Deciding to break the silence and apprehend them immediately, he grabbed two batarangs as he prepared himself for action. Suddenly, a loud scream threw him off guard. It also took Scarecrow and his thugs by surprise. "What the heck was that?" one thug asked, pointing his gun toward a tree. "I think we should check it out." "Follow me, gentlemen," ordered Scarecrow. He and his men ran toward the source of the scream, not willing to risk the safety of the person by leaving him slash her at the hands of the villains. He grabbed his grappling gun and shot its hook at a tall tree's branches. The grapple lifted him high in the air until he stood on top of a branch and examined the view below him. He saw in a distance several creatures that appeared to be wolves. The scream was heard once again. Not wasting a moment, he jumped down below until his cape opened and extended itself as bat wings to help him glide in the high air, causing him to fly way ahead of the criminals. He glided toward the running wolves to see whom they were chasing. Scarecrow and his men weren't far behind. They ran as quickly as they could until a large pillar of black smoke surrounded them and engulfed them. Once the smoke dissipated, they were all gone. Batman safely landed on the ground. Once he looked back to see his foes, they were all gone. Strange, were they not far from me about 10 seconds ago? Where did they go? He wondered. Bah! Somebody help us, a young voice cried out. Somebody? Batman repeated, puzzled. He ran toward the source of the scream, until he saw the same wolves he spotted earlier. Wait, wooden wolves. He saw 3 fillies, one orange, the other yellow with a pink bow on her red hair, and the third white, shaking in terror at the sight of the timber wolves. Help! Help! The orange filly screamed with tears on her eyes. The ferocious predators growled as they readied themselves to devour the terrified prey in front of them. Suddenly, Batman jumped right in front of the fillies, and clenched his fists in front of the stunned wolves. "Stay back. Don't move," he said to the surprised fillies as he prepared himself to fight the timber wolves. Chapter 2, I'm Batman. The timber wolves lunged at the Dark Knight. He immediately dived beneath them, and shot 3 batarangs towards their legs. As soon as they stabbed their front legs, they wailed in pain. The 3 creatures grabbed the accessories with their teeth, and tossed them aside. Batman was careful to not fatally wound those strange creatures, even though they meant harm to those scared fillies. One of them, angered by the attack, once again sought to harm him by lunging at him, but Batman was too quick for it. He seized it by the throat, and threw it against the other wolves with a bit too much force. The leading timber wolf collied with its companions, and crashed against a tree, causing them to explode to pieces of wood. Batman was starting to regret his rash action once he beheld their remains in shock. To his surprise, they magically rebuilt themselves to their normal forms. They looked upon him in total fear now that he defeated them. He was the most dangerous prey to ever face one-on-one. Deciding that he was too powerful to take on, they all fled in terror. Batman didn't know what to think of what just happened. These creatures of wood were capable of regeneration. What kind of planet was he in? He then turned to the fillies who gazed upon him in awe, especially the orange one. Once he got a good close-up view on them, he was internally shocked and amazed to see their appearance. Those look like cartoons. Did that portal take us in a cartoon universe? This has got to be a complete joke, he wondered. He bent down to meet their level. Are you kids all right? Batman asked them. The fillies were stunned to hear his deep intimidating voice. This strange bipedal creature, that appeared to be a giant bat of some kind, saved their lives and spoke their language. They had never seen this type of creature before. Yes, we're fine, the yellow filly nervously thanked. That was so awesome. Thank you, the orange filly shouted with downright energy with a large smile and beaming eyes. You saved our lives. Yeah, you took down those timber wolves so easily. Thank you, mister. The white filly spoke. I'm Batman, he he introduced himself. Batman. Wow, that's an awesome name. My name is Scootaloo, she shouted. I'm Sweetie Belle, the other filly nodded. And I'm Apple Bloom, the last one said. What are you three doing out here in the middle of the forest? It's too dangerous, he scolded. We were just trying to investigate that portal that opened up above those trees. Sweetie said. Yeah, we were very curious to see what had caused it to appear in the Everfree forest. Scootaloo added. Batman took note of their observation. If they saw the portal open, then the others probably spotted it as well. But he didn't want to count on it, since he wasn't sure of it. Is there civilization anywhere in this world? I need to find help as to how I can return back to my home. Batman said. You're from another dimension. That's so cool. You're so cool. Scootaloo yelled before she hugged Batman's leg. Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle chuckled at her enthusiasm. Batman was starting to get somewhat annoyed with this particular filly. He wasn't this used to praise and love, since he was both feared and despised by the majority of people in Gotham despite the minority who appreciated him such as Gordon. Take me to your hometown. I need to have the available help to get back home. Batman firmly demanded. Oh, sure. Follow us. Apple Bloom said. Batman followed her and Sweetie as they walked down the path that led away from the Everfree forest, whereas Scootaloo trotted close to him with the same fangirlish and grateful attitude. I've never seen you before, and I'm already starting to like you. Is that your cape? It looks so cool. I wonder why you're called Batman. Scootaloo giddily said. Take a guess, he flatly told her. She looked at his skull and the scary bat symbol on his suit's chest. Then she got the clue. Oh, I see. Oh, and what are you? Are you some sort of bipedal bat creature or something? Where did you come from? Are you an alien or something? Just curious to know, she smiled. Just consider me as an enigma. Batman said. Rainbow Dash is going to be so impressed by you. Scootaloo squealed. Who's this Rainbow Dash? He asked. What kind of odd names are those? Are they supposed to represent their personality? He asked himself. She's my sister figure. She's the most awesome pony in Equestria. You'll like her. Scootaloo replied. We'll see about that, he said. What were those things you threw at those timber wolves? They almost looked like boomerangs, but shaped like bats. Scootaloo asked. I call them batarangs. They are most effective when used to disarm an enemy, or to disorient them to gain an advantage over them. It took plenty of practice for me to master them. Batman replied. That's awesome. What other weapons do you have? I'm sure you have like superpowers as well. Scootaloo said. This kid asks so many questions. I'm going to need plenty of rest by the end of the day, unlike in Gotham. And superpowers. What existing hero has powers of a god? Do they even exist? Not from where I came from, he said in his mind. I do not consider myself as a superhero. I protect anyone from harm, and upholds the good in every way possible. That's all you need to know about me, he flatly replied. He had no interest in answering idle questions, or indulging in children's fantasies. The overwhelming irony was, that he himself was trapped in a little girl's imagination. Oh okay. It's so great to meet you, Batman. You're awesome just like Rainbow Dash. I bet you two will become best buddies. Scootaloo said. Batman silently groaned as they finally exited out of the Everfree forest. Just before they could go any further, they were met by 3 other ponies, one with rainbow hair and tail, the second with a cowboy hat, and the third with purple-styled hair. They embraced the fillies affectionately, after calling their names. Apple Bloom. Girls. You're all right, the farm pony said. We were so worried about you all. Indeed. Where have you girls been? You know better than to run off unsupervised in the Everfree forest, the white unicorn scolded, while hugging Sweetie Belle. Yeah, we could have lost you 3, the Rainbow Pegasus added. None of the 3 newcomers noticed the Dark Knight standing behind them. We're really sorry, Applejack. We were just trying to figure out that portal that appeared out of nowhere in the forest. Apple Bloom said, having her head down in shame. But we were saved from those scary timber wolves by Batman. None of us got hurt, Rainbow Dash, truly. Scootaloo yelled. Rainbow Dash and Rarity looked at her skeptically. Excuse me. Batman? Who's this Batman? Rarity asked. See him for yourselves. Sweetie Belle said as she pointed to him behind their older sisters. Rainbow, Applejack, and Rarity looked behind them, and beheld the Dark Knight himself. They had mixed reactions of amazement, fear, and confusion. Batman stood before them with the faintest hint of a smirk. Scootaloo looked expectantly at their sisters with excitement, especially Rainbow Dash. Who is that? Rarity cried out. Applejack and Rainbow couldn't say a word out of too much astonishment soaking their brains. I'm Batman, he spoke to them. Chapter 3, The Rise of Fear. What in the where are we now? Scarecrow shouted in irritation. He and his men were teleported in a dark vacant cave. Moments before they could discover where they were, an unknown power took them by surprise, and brought them to another place that rather appeared spooky and gloomy. The corrupt doctor though didn't mind the unsettling atmosphere. It appears we are in a random cave. Steez replied. A creepy cave, that is, one of his thugs replied fearfully. This place is giving me the creeps. You really think this place is more scary than Gotham, Zach? This cave is nothing compared to our city. Sass scoffed. What was that black cloud? That thing just teleported us here out of nowhere, another thug shouted. The moment he mentioned the black cloud, a loud thunderous noise was heard in the distance within the cave. It startled all of the men including Scarecrow. They all held their submachine guns in their arms, and aimed at whatever caused the noise. Seeing no visible source of the noise, they slowly drew closer toward the other entrance that led to the other side of cave. Moments later, several small stones fell beside them which forced them to fire several shots toward the ceiling. Who's up there? Sass shouted, pointing his gun in the air. Are you here, Batman? Show yourself, a thug demanded. There was dead silence for about several minutes. The silence made them nervous. They lowered their weapons, and decided to move on in the cave. They wandered in the cave for about half an hour, while having no idea as to where they were heading. The thugs couldn't believe all the events that just transpired in their lives. First, they were planning with their crime boss to take over Gotham with a doomsday device. The Dark Knight showed up and fought them. The device malfunctioned as a result of Scarecrow's rash action. The portal sucked them in a strange world that appeared to be a cartoony wild imagination, and then got teleported by an unknown source that randomly took them in a strange cave. All of these things completely overwhelmed their minds as they could not comprehend why these things were happening to them. Why them? Gentlemen, I'm afraid we are lost. Scarecrow spoke. I have no clue what just took us here in this cartoony area, but I assure you all that once we take care of Batman, we will find a way out of this ridiculous and meaningless fantasy, and finish where we started in Gotham. All the criminals cheered in response to his encouraging speech. Suddenly, a deep, dark, wicked laugh echoed throughout the whole cave that it shook it. All the hearty cheers were cut short by the abrupt, devilish laughter. Scarecrow and his men pulled their guns toward the source of the laugh. However, as soon as they laid their eyes on it, their eyes widened in surprise. A black misty pillar whirled furiously before them, and revealed a large red horn, green eyes surrounded by purple flames, and a wicked smile. The pillar shrunk in size of a stallion and morphed to a dark gray male unicorn with the same horn and smile displaying fangs, but this time adorned in his kingly scarlet apparel, and with more plates on his legs, having a waving dark hair, and green eyes turning to normal white eyes with red iris and black pupils. Ha 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 ha, the Dark Lord evilly laughed. Who are you? Some of his men screamed in terror. You may address me as King Sombra, the evil tyrant introduced. Sass however laughed hysterically at Sombra, since he had a distaste for cartoons. Are you guys that scared of a cartoon? Haha. It's just a lousy animated character. I'll take him out in an instant, he replied before aiming his gun at Sombra, and shooting him in the chest. To his shock, the bullets had no effect on him whatsoever. Sombra then shot a pair of green eyes to Sass's eyes within seconds. Sass stumbled on the ground as he fought against the green eyes although unsuccessfully. Then he stopped struggling, looked around with a frantic look on his face, which had green eyes, and started to scream in horror. The thugs were confused about what was going on. "Yo, Sass, relax. What's wrong?" Steez shouted. "Get away from Emmy. Batman is gonna get Emmy." "No." Sass screamed. He was beating the air, rolling on the ground, and covered his face. Scarecrow looked upon Sombra with a mixture of amazement, impression, and fear. Sombra inhaled the air, and exhaled it out, while licking his teeth. "I smell fear in here. Wouldn't you agree with me, Dr. Jonathan Crane aka Scarecrow?" Sombra asked with a smirk. Scarecrow widened his eyes in shock. "How do you know me?" Scarecrow demanded. "I've watched you for so long. Your agony, your trials, your unique phobias, your life, your crimes, everything." Sombra whispered menacingly as he encircled him with a devious smile. Intimidated, Scarecrow sprayed the fear toxin on Sombra in a vain attempt to turn the tables. However, the wicked unicorn hungrily inhaled the toxin, and licked his chops, as if he ate a satisfying meal for dinner, which shocked the criminal psychologist even more. "Yum, your fear toxin tastes delicious," Sombra exclaimed. "Get ready to fire on that guy." Steez commanded his fellow thugs. But the moment they raised their weapons on the King of Shadows, Sombra shot forth his bonds of dark magic on the rest of them, chaining them to a wall. They struggled to free themselves, but in vain. "Why so violent, dear humans? I'm not here to destroy you, but to simply get acquainted with one another." Sombra said. "What do you want from us?" Scarecrow asked. "Why, I'm so glad you asked, my dear doctor," spoke Sombra. "You see, we are not so different from one another. You seek to spread fear and terror on your enemies. So do I. You desire to seek revenge on those who thwarted your schemes." "Yes," he hissed, smirking. "Well, of course I do. All that I have done was, by definition, my life's work. But why should we be of any interest to you?" Scarecrow asked, raising an eyebrow that spoke suspicion. Chuckle. "Why? Because you possess a unique potential that would even put my own adversaries to permanent defeat and destruction. As you have witnessed with your own gifted eyes, I'm the master of fears, the king of shadows, and bringer of terror. I am fear," his deep demonic voice bellowed, shaking the entire ground. He then drew closer to Scarecrow in shadow form. "Drive Crane, I've seen how effective your hallucinogens were when they infected all the people of your city Gotham. I've also seen the very medium that defeated you, and your master's schemes entirely, the Batman." Sombra said. "You know him. How are you even inhabiting our world?" Scarecrow asked. "I have the power to travel through worlds and dimensions. I spread fear and honor to all those whom I wish to harm and terrorize." "Ah, my poor little Scarecrow, you have lost the power of scaring the crows of pathetic morality. You have a large field of corn and wheat, ready to be harvested. Your job was to cast fear to the crows, that sought to take food from the crops, that shouldn't belong to them. Instead, they realized you lost your touch. Your failure to be an exceptional feared legend allowed them to take what they wanted. You ultimately failed to scare that one former crow of vengeful fear who later turned to be a bat of righteous fear." Sombra condescendingly lectured. "But all hope is not lost, Doctor. I give a simple choice to you, a proposal, to be exact. Join me in my retake of the Crystal Empire and the destruction of every penny who will get in my way," he menacingly uttered. "When that is accomplished, I will rule both the Crystal Empire and Equestria. Well, what's in it for me? For us? Will you help us destroy Batman then?" Scarecrow asked, stuttering. "Why, of course I will help," Sombra replied. "With your scientific expertise, and your fear toxin at my disposal, I will be able to increase my power, and seize what is rightfully mine. In return, I will give you all the desires of your heart, even Gotham itself as your domain. So, it's either you join me in my conquest, serving Emmy, or you can go back to the inglorious period of being second-rate to Batman. Which will it be?" he whispered. Scarecrow didn't know what to think at first. This strange being who suddenly, or out of nowhere, knew almost everything about him, called him out on his failure, and revealed himself as a dark lord of tyranny and fear, was standing before him, offering him a chance of redemption, where he can properly get revenge on the Dark Knight, and take over Gotham. He thought the offer over, and looked to his men for their reaction. Not surprisingly, some were fearful, while others were beyond confused. Some of their looks signified disbelief and distrust at Sombra's offer. He could tell that some of his thugs didn't trust Sombra and certainly didn't want their boss to accept him. But once he meditated on how Batman humiliated him, and nearly ruined his plans, he made his final decision. "I accept your proposal, King Sombra," Scarecrow asked. His thugs gave mixed shouts of shock and protest in response. King Sombra, however, darkly chuckled in satisfaction. "I knew you would see reason, my friend." Sombra evilly smiled all the way to his cheeks. Chapter 4, Welcome to Ponyville. Batman. "My goodness, where in the name of Celestia did you come from?" Rarity screamed. Batman stood before her, Rainbow Dash, and Applejack, while the Cutie Mark Crusaders stood next to him, smiling brightly. "We don't know where he came from, but, like I told you, he saved our lives. He's so awesome," Scootaloo shouted. "Awesome? From the looks of it, he looks rather sinister-like. Is he like a bat creature or something?" Rainbow asked. "And this creature is standing on twos. What kind of creature is he?" Applejack asked. Batman remained silent during the reactions, while he took note of them in mind. "This is going to be quite interesting, to say the least. Why am I having the feeling that this orange filly is going to follow me around wherever I go?" Batman thought. "Are you three sure that this creature is very friendly and protective, as you say?" Rarity asked them, raising an eyebrow. "We are," the three fillies replied at once. "If you say so," Rainbow said. She then flew up to Batman. "Okay, Batman, I guess we should thank you for saving Scootaloo, Apple Bloom, and Sweetie Belle. They wouldn't have been here if you haven't saved them. But I'm still keeping an eye on you, buddy." Batman simply nodded. Rarity drew close to him, and curiously examined his suit. She then gazed in awe once she was finished. He looked down on her once she got a little too close. She backed away from him as she recoiled out of fear. "Sorry, Sir Batman, I was just amazed by your somewhat unique design. That's all," she sheepishly smiled. "Hold up. Is that your cape?" Applejack pointed to his long black cape. "Are ya some sort of superhero or something?" Rainbow Dash then changed her look of suspicion to a look of surprise the moment she turned to him expectantly for his reply. Batman looked upon the mares and the fillies with the same heroic eyes he gave to Rachel, before he faced Ra's al Ghul. "It's not who I'm underneath, but what I do that defines me," he spoke. The ponies had looks of confusion on their faces. "What is that supposed to mean?" Rainbow asked. Scootaloo thought it over until she got the idea. "I think he means that his actions tells us who he really is. You know, like, not judge a book by its cover sort of thing." Scootaloo interpreted. "Ah, I get it now." Rainbow said. "I think we should bring him to Ponyville. I'm certain he would be quite a friendly visitor there." Rarity suggested. The fillies rejoiced in excitement to have their savior come visit their hometown. "I'm also sure that Twilight, Pinky, and Fluttershy would like him too. Come on, big guy. We're gonna take ya to Ponyville." Applejack said to him. "What is up with these names they're having? And their hometown is named with a horse pun. Give me a break," he scoffed in thought. "Hold on. Before we go, we would like to properly introduce ourselves. My name is Rarity, a professional fashionista. A pleasure to meet you, Sir Batman." The unicorn made a slight bow and welcome. "I'm Applejack, toughest farm pony in Ponyville. Great to meet ya," the farm pony greeted as she kicked her hind legs in the air. "And I'm the one and only Rainbow Dash, fastest Pegasus there is. Nice to meet you." She waved her hoof, after flying in a circle to display her speed. Batman remained stoic after they introduced themselves, although he took mental note of their personalities. "Great. Now that we have probably introduced ourselves, we will escort you to Ponyville. Follow us." Rarity gestured to the Dark Knight. He did so without hesitation as he needed to find a way out of this world back to Gotham. So far, he has encountered 3 fillies and 3 mares who have strange names with different personalities with various colors. Once they were walking, Batman took notice of Rarity and Sweetie Belle being unicorns. He also heard this Rainbow Dash boasting of being the fastest Pegasus. Could it be possible that he was in a cartoony world, where myths and legends are actually real, whereas in his world, they do not exist at all? He knew for sure that he was in a living fantasy with fictional characters. But could they in some logic-defying way help him bring him back to his home world with no trouble? He will have to find out soon enough. After about 10 minutes of walking, they finally reached Ponyville. Batman beheld the town with the slightest wonder. He could easily tell that their species were quite primitive judging by their environment, but he still hoped for a way out of this dimension. They all entered the place. The residents saw their friends, and waved at them as they passed, but the moment they laid their side on the Dark Knight, they either gasped in fear, or out of mere surprise. They kept staring at him once he also passed by as they have never seen this dark and mysterious creature before in Equestria. Was he a dangerous creature, as if he came out of the pits of Tartarus? Was he an alien? A wild hybrid? What was he? Batman took note of their reactions, even though he did not directly look back at them. They reminded him of how Gotham used to react to him ever since he began his existence in career fighting against crime and evil. He remembered how there were some people in Gotham who appreciated him, and praised him for his works of heroism, and stand against organized crime. He also remembered some other people like Commissioner Labe who hated him, and did not like how he was fighting against crime as a vigilante. Would this unknown world be reminiscent of Gotham, or would it be different? The 6 ponies directed him to a tree house. He was slightly impressed with the structure of the treehouse and its appearance. Scootaloo knocked on the door. Once they were opened, a little purple dragon greeted them. "Hey guys. What's up?" he said. "Hey, Spike. We have a new visitor we would love to show to our friends." Scootaloo said. "Oh. Who would that be?" Spike asked, tilting his head. As if on cue, the Dark Knight loomed over him in the most intimidating manner. Spike's pupils shrunk as he fearfully beheld this dark figure for the first time of his life. He slowly backed away to avoid his movements. Who is this guy?" Spike asked, shaking in fear. "Don't worry, Spike, he's friendly. His name is Batman. He won't hurt you," Scootaloo assured. "Is Twilight around?" Scootaloo asked. "Yes, she's inside with Pinky and Fluttershy," Spike replied, letting his nervousness decrease. "Finally a character who isn't a horse, or whatever they are. I wonder if there are other dragons around here." Batman thought. They entered inside where it appeared as a library. That was where Twilight Sparkle, Pinkie Pie, and Fluttershy were talking with each other. "Hey girls. I hope everything is okay with you all," Twilight greeted. "Indeed we are. We have a newcomer from somewhere who is visiting Ponyville today. I'm sure you will like him," Rarity said. "A new visitor? Why, I love meeting new visitors," Pinkie shouted while firing her party cannon with confetti. "My, who's this visitor?" asked Fluttershy. "See for yourself," Scootaloo said as they all stepped aside to reveal Batman. Twilight and Fluttershy were flabbergasted at the sight of the dark creature that appeared rather threatening, scary, and intimidating. Batman walked up to them and made one simple nod in welcome. "I'm Batman," he introduced himself in the same manner he did before Applejack, Rainbow Dash, and Rarity. Scootaloo giggled as she apparently took a liking for him mentioning his own name in a menacing way. Twilight and Fluttershy still had their mouths open in amazement. But suddenly, the pink pony appeared behind Batman, and kept a long obnoxious stare upon him. "Welcome to Ponyville, Batman. Oh, I should make a cake in the shape of a bat, or in the same shape your bat symbol has on your chest. You're gonna have the best welcome party ever," Pinkie shouted. "I'm only about 10 seconds in, and I'm immediately starting to dislike this pony now," Batman ranted as he silently groaned in annoyance. Chapter 5, More Than You Know. Twilight drew near to Batman with a look of astonishment. She had never seen the strange being before in Equestria, not until now. She then looked up, to see his face up close. She noticed his apparent scowl and look of seriousness in his eyes. From the looks of it, she was thinking two things. It was either he was angry from being dragged down here against his will, or he was on an important mission, before being interrupted, or both. She couldn't tell which one. "So you're Batman. I've never seen a being like you before," Twilight said. "Neither have I seen you, or this world before." Batman said, "Where did you come from? Are you like an alien or something?" "Wait," Twilight said before quickly switching her mood from fear to immediate excitement. "Are you an actual alien? If so, I have so many questions. See, I knew you would find him to be awesome." Scootaloo smiled. Batman rolled his eyes in annoyance, before turning his eyes to the shy Pegasus in the background. Curious, he walked over to her, and bent down to her level. Fluttershy made a quiet yelp, before covering her face with her pink hair for fear of looking at him due to his frightful appearance. Batman realized that she was fearful of his presence, when he saw her covering her face. "Don't be afraid. I'm not here to hurt you," Batman whispered to her ear. She looked up to him, while peeking through her hair. He then softly stroked her hair to comfort her. She was still nervous of his presence, but she accepted the comfort, and gave a small smile to him. Thank you, Batman," she muttered. "Don't mention it," Batman replied with the tiniest of smiles. "This character is very decent. I can definitely get used to her. I can tell she's shy and nervous, but at least she isn't annoying as the others are." "What's your name?" Batman asked. "I'm Fluttershy," she replied very quietly. Even though the others could barely hear her, Batman heard her very well. "Fluttershy," Batman repeated. Even her name tells us of her personality. No wonder she's like this." "It's a pleasure to meet you." Likewise," Fluttershy said. "So, Batsy, how about we throw you a welcome to Ponyville party?" Pinky shouted while holding a banner with the same 3 words, and throwing confetti in the air. "Batsy. She gave me a nickname like that." Batman wondered. "I appreciate your courtesy, but that won't be necessary," he refused. "Oh, but I must throw you one," Pinky insisted. "Every new visitor to Ponyville always gets a welcome party. Come on. You'll love it. Yeah, everybody will see you, and can get to know you. I bet they will all be surprised to see a great creature like you," Sweetie Belle added. Scootaloo and the other ponies nodded in agreement. Batman then considered his options. 1. He could simply refuse the party, and explain his situation of being stranded in a different world, where he needs to get back to his home world, to resume his duty of protecting Gotham from its criminal evils. Or 2. He could just put the matter aside for later, and see what this strange cartoony town would have to offer, and thus explore what ways they could help him in his situation. "If I just refuse not only their party but also these cartoonish animal characters, I'll be forced to solve my dire problem on my own. I'm not even sure if these characters can't even help me get back to my home," he reasoned in thought. "However, I'm not giving up that easily. By joining their party as a guest of honor, I could get to know them personally, and see what they are capable of, and if possible help me get back to my world. I can only hope that there's some all-powerful magic in this land." Batman then made his choice. "Alright then. I'll join your party as a guest of honor, I guess." All the ponies and dragons shouted in joy. "Yay! We're gonna have so much fun," Pinky said while jumping up and down enthusiastically, before dashing out of the door to Sugar Cube Corner. Scootaloo and Twilight then drew close to Batman. The filly hugged his left leg, while smiling in excitement. "You're going to love it here, Batman. Everybody will be in for a big surprise tonight," Scootaloo said. "Absolutely. Oh, I have a question. Are you like some sort of subspecies of bats? I've read a lot of bats and other creatures before, but I've never read anything of bat-like creatures like you," Twilight said. "I'm the creature of the night. I prey upon those who prey upon the fearful. Not once has any criminal being been able to escape my judgment and my vengeance. You can consider me as the Dark Knight. Batman replied. Wow, that's amazing. Twilight responded. So you're like a superhero then? I'm more than that, more than you know. As a matter of fact, I'm not even technically a superhero. Batman answered. Oh really? There's such a thing as superheroes who don't have superpowers, and yet have other strengths that are somewhat unique. Twilight asked. If you were in my world, then you would understand. Batman said. Oh I see. Well, it seems that Scootaloo really likes you a lot. Twilight said as she looked at the Pegasus filly still hugging his leg. Yeah. He saved me, and my friends from those timber wolves. The way he fought them off was so epic. All those gadgets he used, and his fighting style, everything. Scootaloo shouted. Timber wolves? We haven't seen those creatures in a while. Were you three fillies running off to the Everfree Forest again? Twilight asked with the scolding look that parents would have when their children do something wrong. The Cutie Mark Crusaders then lowered their heads in shame. Yeah, we're really sorry, Twilight. Apple Bloom said. We were just trying to find out where that strange portal came from. We didn't mean to get ourselves in trouble. The word portal caused Twilight to gasp in shock. Wait, what? Portal? In the middle of the Everfree Forest? How? Twilight asked. We don't know. That's what we were trying to figure out, before we were discovered and chased by those timber wolves. Sweetie Belle replied. A portal, hold on. Batman, was that the one you came from? Twilight asked him. Affirmative. That's what took me from my home world to here. Batman answered. I need to find a way out of here to get back home. I think I could work on creating a portal that can connect to your world from ours, but that will take so much time and energy to do so. I'm sure Princess Celestia could assist in that. Twilight said. Princess? You have a princess here. Also, are you saying there's magic here? Batman asked. Twilight nodded. Yep. All of Equestria is filled and governed by its harmonious magic. You'll learn more later on. Also, Celestia is the ruler of Equestria. She reigns in the city of Canterlot with her sister Luna. I have to take you to them. They would love to see you, Batman. Twilight smiled. So they have a monarchy and they have legit magic here. I was hoping there would be some of that. That makes things even easier. I wonder what the Celestia and Luna look like. Their names, Chuckles, again, they just never cease to amaze me. Batman chuckled in thought. I presume your name is Twilight from their mention of you, correct? Batman asked her. Yes. Twilight sparkled. I hope you like my library home here. Twilight said, pointing at all the books in the stacks around them. Intriguing choice for home. You must be a bookworm then. Batman remarked as he looked around the library. Twilight blushed from his comment. Oh, no need to flatter me. I can never be tired from reading, you know. Twilight said. Just like how I can never be tired from fighting crime. That's a whole new level, of course, said Batman. While they were conversing, a dark cloud with green eyes spied on them through a window of the tree house. It then flew off back to the Everfree Forest while evilly chuckling. Chapter 6, New Plants. At the cave. Scarecrow and his thugs were around a campfire within the cave that King Sombra recruited them in. The atmosphere was filled with discontent and distrust considering the recent events that transpired before their eyes. The corrupt doctor himself was both eager and anxious with cooperating with the King of Shadows and finally getting his revenge on Batman. Is this supposed to be our lot? We're just going to sit here and take orders from a cartoon villain. Steez ranted. Yeah, I would rather be beaten senseless by Batman than to follow that knowing doll freak show. Zatch agreed. What are you guys trying to suggest? Take down this somber dude and resume our initial plan in killing Batman? Yeah, that's not going to happen. You saw how he humbled our boss over here, and how he tortured me with my nightmare. Sass argued. Yeah, he's got a point. That guy just wiped the floor with us. I hate to say this, but he is legit more terrifying than Batman, one of the thugs shouted. His words heated their argument even more since several of them would not agree to the notion of Sombra being more scary than Batman. To them, it was like being intimidated by a kid's cartoon than by a real-life nightmare. Gentlemen, please, let's not argue amongst ourselves. King Sombra may be our only chance of giving Batman a taste of his own medicine. Scarecrow said, all that we have to do is to follow our master's commands. In taking over this crystal empire he mentioned, give him what he wants, and then at the end, he'll give us the means by which we can take down our enemy for good. Agreed. The thugs looked at each other, until they nodded their heads in agreement. Some of them agreed willingly, while the others were very doubtful and hesitant. Suddenly, the dark cloud appeared on top of the ceiling, and revealed King Sombra. Large shards of purple crystals appeared in front of them, and shaped themselves into a large throne. Sombra then slowly descended, until he sat on the dark crystal throne. His green eyes shined brightly in the darkness, while he blew out the campfire. Pardon me if I have interrupted anything, my human subjects. Sombra spoke in his deep, dark voice once more. Now that you are all gathered here, I'm pleased to reveal to you my new plans for my revenge on my traitorous usurpers, and, of course, for the defeat of the Dark Knight himself. Great. Eager to hear all about it. Steve sarcastically said in a deadpan manner. For your information, you are all in the land called Equestria, which is home to the inhabitants called the Ponies. Sombra informed. This surprised some of the thugs, except Dr. Crane and the rest. Wait, did you just say ponies? Zatch asked. Sombra nodded in confirmation. If you don't believe me, then see for yourself. Sombra said before igniting his horn, and generating a screen that gave a panoramic view of Ponyville, revealing all the ponies that live there. He even showed Pinkie Pie in Sugar Cube Corner, Applejack in Sweet Apple Acres, Rarity in her carousel boutique, Fluttershy in her cottage caring for the animals, Rainbow Dash controlling the weather in Cloudsdale, and Twilight Sparkle in her treehouse library with Spike. Of course, he did not neglect to reveal Batman himself saving the Cutie Mark Crusaders from the Timberwolves in the Everfree Forest. Wait. I recognize them now. They are from the show called My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. I used to watch that show with my sister, when I was a kid and... Zatch interrupted himself as he looked at the stares of his comrades. Some were confused, while others were disgusted. Zatch then sat back down in embarrassment. I take it, you've seen them before. Sombra asked. Well, I have sigh, yes, I have. Zatch admitted. I even know their names, Twilight Sparkle, Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, Applejack, Rarity, and Fluttershy. Oh, and Spike too. He then turned his head slightly, and whispered to himself. Rarity is my favorite. Excellent. Very impressive indeed. Sombra commended. The more you know your enemy, the better advantage you have over them. Crane then decided to get back on topic. So what are your new plans then, Master? Crane asked. Why, I'm most pleased you asked. We must remember our order of operation as follows. My meticulous takeover of the Crystal Empire, destroying the very ones who defeated me, eliminating the Batman, and finally, your endless reward. Sombra listed. Crane nodded as he carefully listened. Don't you think that Batman will figure out our plans, and try to stop us? Who knows if he will gain help from those ponies, to take us down one by one? Crane asked. Sombra evilly chuckled in response. My dear doctor, you doubt my power. A simple man dressed as a bat is powerless to defeat me. Yours truly. His deep voice shook the cave, scaring Crane's men. However, I know better not to underestimate the warrior. He has indeed destroyed your former master, Ra's al Ghul, and saved Gotham on numerous occasions. However, I do know his weaknesses. Once I exploit them, his downfall will be inevitable. Excuse me, Dark Lord Guy, called one of the thugs. May I ask a question? It is King Sombra, you simpleton. Sombra angrily spoke. Oh, right. Sorry. I was just wondering, how were you defeated by those pony characters? I mean, for a big, dark, all-powerful being such as yourself, I'm sure it's not like you to be bested by whatever stopped you in the first place. the thug said. Some of the men laughed hard. When he finished speaking, Sombra gritted his teeth in irritation. He shot forth several pairs of green eyes unto those who laughed, including the one who indirectly mocked him, and caged them with dark crystals he grew out of the stone ground. They all screamed in horror as they were beating each other up in response to their fears they were seeing, as well as beating against the crystal walls in a vain attempt to escape. Please forgive them, Master. They haven't gotten used to the new chain of command yet. Crane said, sweating nervously. Ah, they will. Sombra uttered menacingly. Tomorrow morning, we will initiate our first plan of action, capturing the rulers of the Crystal Empire known as Prince Shining Armor and Princess Cadence. Once they're out of the way, you will make sure that every crystal pony bows to my will by the time I retake my rightful kingdom. Afterwards, I'll give you what you always wanted, Gotham City at your disposal, while you stand on Batman's body. His cries of mercy will be music to your ears. Yes. I will gladly follow your plan. I've been waiting for this time of my life. You have my deepest gratitude, Master. Crane thanked, bowing before Sombra. Oh, you're more than welcome, Doctor. Sombra said, smiling wickedly. Once he dismissed him and his men from the meeting room, he chuckled to himself. Poor human. I wonder if he will like the surprise I'll give him. No matter. He shall have one, whether he will like it or not. His eyes then glowed in the darkness. Chapter 7, Gotham Enslaved. Back at Gotham, Jim Gordon was traveling back home after an exhausting day at the Gotham City Police Department. His mind was bombarded with so many negative thoughts while driving. The most perplexed thought that predominated his mind was one question, and one question only: where on earth was Batman? I don't understand this. I don't understand this at all. Where the heck is Batman? Did he get captured by that lunatic Dr. Crane? Did Batman forsake his duty for Gotham completely? Did he get teleported into another dimension? Where is he? Gordon screamed in his thoughts. His sweats constantly dripped from his forehead as he was stressed by the recent events. But stress was not the only thing that filled him, it was also fear. Not only did he fear for his fellow officers, and for his family, but also for all of Gotham as well. How will he be able to stand against the villains and the organized crime in Gotham without the help of the Dark Knight? Once he arrived at home, he was greeted by his wife, Barbara Gordon, who embraced and kissed him. Gordon returned the affection, but with a depressed smile on his face. She noticed it the moment she set her eyes on him. Is everything all right, honey? She asked, concerned. Yes, dear, I'm doing just stressed. I know, everything's not all right, he replied while looking down on the ground. Why? What's wrong? Barbara asked. The Batman is supposedly missing. I have no clue what happened, or how or why it happened. He's gone, he dejectedly replied. Barbara gasped in shock. What? That's terrible. Weren't you guys supposed to catch Crane and his goons? She asked. Correct. My colleagues informed me that the last time they saw him or least noticed him flying over the rooftops was when he infiltrated an abandoned warehouse, where Crane and his thugs had their secret hideout. They assumed that Batman and Crane were duking it out in there until something happened. Gordon informed. Right now, the warehouse is under critical investigation. We're doing everything in our power to search for clues to know what happened. The slight good news though is that Crane and his men are also missing. At least they won't cause any more trouble in Gotham, for now. If that is the case, then why do you think that everything is not okay? Barbara asked. Because without the Batman, Gotham will be in complete jeopardy. At this moment, Commissioner Labe is happy as ever since Batman is missing in action. Wait till he sees our people getting robbed, mugged, and possibly killed by these filthy criminals that still waltz around the streets now that our hero isn't around now. Most of my colleagues are corrupt, and won't do anything to rid them off the roads. I'm sick and tired of their anti-Batman agenda. Gordon vented in frustrated anger. Gordon did not notice the look of sorrow and worry on his wife's face after he said all of that. Once he breathed in and breathed out multiple times, he then looked upon her again and noticed her worried expression. I'm sorry, Barb. I didn't mean to yell at you. I'm just so angry and frustrated from everything that happened. Please understand." Gordon apologized. No, I get you, honey. I'm so sorry this is happening to you. You really needed to release your stress and vent your frustration. It's not healthy to keep all those negative feelings inside," Barbara advised, hugging her husband in comfort. "Thank you, dear. I needed to hear that," he said, hugging her back. "Is our son all right?" "Yes. He's in his bed right now," she replied, pointing to his bedroom. Gordon went to his son's bedroom, slowly opened the door, and saw him soundly asleep. He drew close to him, and affectionately stroked his hair. His son made slight movements to adjust his sleeping position on his bed. Gordon smiled at his son, while he had a tear in his right eye. "I love you, son. I'll do everything I can to keep you safe. Batman will come back. I know he will. I have faith," he whispered. Gotham's criminals gathered together within the headquarters of Carmine Falcone. They were joyous to hear of Batman's absence. However, they also suffered a major problem. Without the assistance of Scarecrow and his thugs, their order of operation would likewise be in major jeopardy. How would they be able to function without the leadership and surveillance of their current crime boss? Well, gentlemen, the good news is that the Bat Freak is no longer standing between us and Gotham. The bad news is that Crane is also missing somehow, the leading member of organized crime spoke up. "Well, that is just great. Falcone is held at Arkham Asylum, Ra's al Ghul is dead, and now Crane is missing in action. Come on. Things are just getting worse by the second," one of the criminals shouted. "Exactly. I mean, we need Crane to finish up his project he spoke so much about. According to him, the machine is supposed to summon creatures from other universes to both dominate Gotham and destroy the Batman," another thug spoke. "Correct me if I'm wrong, but could it be that it was that machine that sparked the disappearance of both Batman and Dr. Crane?" All the assembled members wondered and thought if that could have been the culprit behind their disappearances. After a brief silence of contemplation, they turned back towards their leading member. "I think Andrew may be onto something here. In addition to what he said, I might say that the machine possibly could have created a portal through which it took both of them and our companions to an unknown dimension. This could be a stretch though," one of the men said. "A portal? Here in Gotham? What is this? Some sort of cartoon show where illogical occasions can happen at any time?" scoffed the leader. "Don't get me started on this, Dave. This is reality, not fantasy. I'm just saying that it could be a possibility. Don't get me wrong. I'm a grown man with a strong intellect. I'm just theorizing what possibly could have happened to both Bats and Crane. That's all," Dave argued. "Oh please, stop with those scientific theories I keep hearing about," the leader shouted irritably. "They are nothing but complete bull." The leader screamed as he was thrown against a window. He smashed right through the window, shattering it. His screams were still heard as he flew high in the midnight sky, until he plummeted to his death. His screams ceased. All the thugs rose from their seats in amazement and fear of what happened. Suddenly, a large pillar of darkness manifested itself in front of them, and revealed King Sombra, who smiled sinisterly. The men were shocked and appalled by the new sight. "Who are you?" they cried in terror. "You may call me King Sombra. Prepare yourselves as you behold the new ruler of Gotham take everything that is mine," he proclaimed. He shot dark magic at all of them in the room. After they screamed in horror and vainly wrestled against the magic, mind-controlling helmets appeared on their heads. They then bowed before Sombra, while exclaiming with a monotone voice, "All hail King Sombra! All hail King Sombra!" Satisfied with their forced worship, his horn ignited a long steady beam of dark magic all the way up to the night sky, which formed into a cumulonimbus cloud of darkness, blocking the moon and the stars from shining. The darkness became so thick that it enshrouded all of Gotham. Large shards of dark crystals grew out of the roads, which caused major car accidents throughout all of the city streets. Large skyscrapers were impaled by the growing crystals. Several police cars were overturned in a desperate attempt to avoid the stabbing crystals that kept abruptly sprouting from the roads. Many civilians screamed in terror at the sight of the shards. Sombra stood on top of the largest crystal, which coincidentally faced Wayne Tower. He faced all of Gotham's citizens who beheld him in amazement and shock. "Citizens of Gotham, your new king, Sombra, arises. Bow before me. You all shall tremble at my infinite power," he announced to them. Commissioner Labe and his officers were blown away at the sight of this strange cartoon villain that appeared out of nowhere. "Oh my God, what in God's name is that thing?" Labe shouted. He then reached for his cell phone and called someone. "Gordon, I need you here immediately. A strange creature came out of nowhere and is taking over Gotham. Hurry." He then hung up the phone. Suddenly, he, his officers, and all of Gotham's citizens were assaulted by Sombra's magic, which then morphed to helmets. Their eyes glowed green, and turned to the King of Shadows. "All hail King Sombra! All hail King Sombra! All hail King Sombra!" they emotionlessly chanted. They bowed before their new ruler. Sombra darkly laughed in pride and satisfaction. Once Gordon heard Labe's words during the call, he was confused at first. He didn't even give me a chance to ask questions. Strange creature. What creature? He asked himself. He got out of the house dressed in his officer form, and got his cruiser ready. At that moment, he saw Sombra standing on top of the largest dark purple crystal from a far distance. His eyes widened in shock. Chapter 8, Bat Party. "So this place is called Ponyville, correct?" Batman asked. "Yep. Ponyville is the perfect place to make friends. I know you'll enjoy our hometown, Mr. Batman." Twilight replied, smiling. Batman looked around the town and once again witnessed the ponies staring at him with the same reactions from before. While some of them couldn't bear to stand in his frightful presence, there were some others who approached him and welcomed him to Ponyville, as if he were a common visitor or even another pony at that. He nodded his head to them in acknowledgement. "So this town is inhabited by these ponies. So these horses have the ability to talk, and have the same sentience that humans have. I bet everyone in my world would be freaking out if ponies on Earth were to talk," he mused. He, Twilight, and the CMCs passed by Sugar Cube Corner. When Batman looked up, he noticed the structure and texture of the house where Pinkie worked and lived. "This is Sugar Cube Corner. It's the place where Pinkie Pie works and lives with the Cake family," Twilight explained. "If you have any need for a delicious treat, you can always stop by Pinkie. You'll love it. As long as she doesn't throw any unnecessary surprises, I'll be fine with it," Batman replied. "Or even better, not constantly annoy me every 5 seconds. Why does this look like a gingerbread house? If she works at a bakery, then that would explain why she is so annoyingly hipper. This is why kids cannot eat sweets all the time. I'm not even sure if I can go to her party with her around. I might turn it down. Oh, come on, she's not that bad. She's very good at making parties. Don't you like parties?" Sweetie Belle asked. "No," he replied flatly. "What?" Pinkie shouted from Sugar Cube Corner. Suddenly, she ran out of the door, and stood right in front of Batman with a shocked expression on her face. "You don't like parties? You heard me right. I do not like them," Batman said again. "I thought you said you would come." Pinkie said. "Well, I changed my mind. I remember that I don't relish parties at all." Batman replied nonchalantly. "Would you please come to my party? You won't be disappointed. I promise." Pinkie begged. "No," I said. Batman snapped. "Come on. You'll miss out a great occasion in meeting new ponies, even new friends, and having a great time." Pinkie pleaded. Batman then remembered what he planned earlier. "That's right, if I join them in their party, I'll have a chance to get to know them, and see if they can help me catch Crane and his thugs. With them at large somewhere, these innocent ponies will be in grave danger. I can't allow that to happen. I also still need to find a way out of this world. Gotham will not last longer, so long as I'm absent." Batman thought. The Dark Knight then sighed, before he replied back. "I'll come to your party, on one condition." "Oh really? Yay. Oh, what's the condition?" Pinkie said. Batman then drew close to her face menacingly with a firm glare. "That you do not annoy me in any way, shape, or form. And no surprises either. Do I make myself clear? Batman spoke. Yes, sir. Anything to have you come. See you at the party. Pinky saluted, blasting her party cannon once more. After Sherry entered Sugar Cube Corner, Batman turned to see Twilight and the CMC's happy with his decision to join. This is gonna be so exciting. Having a party with Batman. That's so cool. Scootaloo squealed. Batman groaned in silence. It will be one interesting night he will never forget. At the train station, Scarecrow and his thugs hid themselves behind the bushes. They discovered the traveling ponies that were waiting for the train to arrive. The villains had an objective to accomplish as well as a destination to travel to. Are you gentlemen ready? Batman's permanent defeat is no longer far away now that we have the means to seal our victory. The power of fear will never perish once this is said and done. Scarecrow declared with pride. Some of his men nodded in agreement with wicked glee, while others rolled their eyes in heavy doubt. You had better hope this will work out, Doc. Because that somber fellow really has not given any trustworthy vibes so far the last time we talked with him. Steve said. It will be all right, my good friend. Trust him as you trust me. Everything will go just as we planned, and just as he promised me. Besides, I'm not willing to let Batman take me back to Arkham Asylum for one more time. Scarecrow vehemently assured. At that moment, the train arrived. Here is our chance, men. Follow my lead, he ordered. They slowly crept around the station without being seen by the ponies. Hiding beside the wall of the station, they saw the conductor getting out of the train. All aboard. The next stop is the Crystal Empire, he announced. The criminals wickedly grinned once they heard the name of their target place. They jumped below the platform where they would not be spotted by the passengers. Then they went to the engine of the train, and climbed on it. The train began to depart from the station and head toward the Crystal Empire. Scarecrow and his thugs then smashed through the windows of the train engine, which startled the engineer himself. Before he could scream for help, Scarecrow sprayed the fear toxin on him. The engineer collapsed on the floor, completely paralyzed by the hallucinogen, before he looked upon his attackers again. The moment he set his eyes on them, they appeared as demonic equines with sharp fangs and sharp claws ready to devour him. He shrieked in horror, and covered his face to avoid seeing them. The villains laughed sadistically at his torment. They picked him up from the floor, and threw him out of the train, while it was still in motion. Landing on the grass, he continued to suffer from the nightmarish fears, until they would somewhat subside later on. Well done, gentlemen, complimented Scarecrow. The first part of our objective is complete. Once we arrive at the Crystal Empire, we'll pay a special visit to the royals of the palace. King Sombra will rendezvous with us there. Later that night, welcome to Ponyville, Batman. Several ponies of the town welcomed him. All of the residents held the party at Applejack's farm, where there was a huge cake that was baked in the exact same shape of Batman's bat insignia. Big Mac and Granny Smith were both amazed and happy to see a new visitor to Ponyville, although he was a strange, bipedal creature who was never known by anybody before. My, what a peculiar black fella the little ones brought over. Granny Smith acknowledged, gazing at him. Yup. Big Mac agreed. See, Batman. Everybody's starting to like you already. Scootaloo said, eating a piece of the bat cake. Yes, I can see that. Speaking of which, I think it's a good time, where we can get to know each other. Batman said. The main six lightened at the idea. Most definitely. How about we get to know you first, before we share our stories? You know, since you're the special guest here. Twilight suggested. The others nodded in agreement. Batman was hesitant at first, until he realized that the only way they could help him on his mission was for him to reveal where exactly he came from, what his mission is, and how he got here. So be it. Now, I didn't tell you this the moment we met, but to tell you all the truth, I'm from a planet called Earth, where humans inhabit the whole planet. I come from a city called Gotham, a city filled with vice, crime, corruption, and evil. Only a minority there are actually good law-abiding citizens, but it is nothing compared to the corruption that prevails throughout the entire city, he began. The ponies attentively listened to every word he spoke, Mostly Scootaloo. So this Gotham is your home city. Is it somewhat like Manhattan? Rarity asked. Applejack rolled her eyes. Manhattan? A pony parody of Manhattan? Wow. Every place has a pony pun for a name, he thought. You could say that, but it's even worse. Every day, my people would get robbed for their money. Most police officers, who are also corrupt, would overlook the crimes that would happen before their very eyes, and people would get murdered for anything. It wasn't as still the norm in Gotham, he resumed. Oh my. That's terrible, said Fluttershy. Hold on. Is that the reason why ya have your cape and that batsuit on ya? Applejack asked. To try to save your folks, and try to intimidate those darn criminals. Indeed. Of course, it is much more than that, more than meets the eye. Batman confirmed. Wow. That is awesome. Rainbow Dash said. I bet all those losers fear you every night, and have bad dreams of you. I would totally pay to see that. But why? I'm just curious to know. What inspired you to save your fellow citizens from those criminals? Did something happen to you that made you like this? Twilight asked. At that moment, Batman lowered his head and closed his eyes. This concerned the ponies, when they saw his silent reaction. Batman, are you okay? Fluttershy asked. What's wrong, Batman? Scootaloo asked with the most worried look on her face. Was it something I said? Twilight asked, tilting her head in confusion. I'll tell you what happened. But first, you need to see the other side of me. Batman said. What do you mean? Appleblame asked. Batman then took his cowl off, and showed his face in front of the ponies. I'm Bruce Wayne. Chapter 9, Batman's Tragedy Retold. What are you really? Applejack asked, raising her eyebrows. She scrutinized Bruce. I'm a human, a species that dominates my entire home world. Bruce replied. A human? Pinky asked, confused. Human. Bruce corrected before turning to Twilight. To answer your question, something indeed did happen to me when I was at a very young age. I normally would not share this with anyone, since it's very personal, but if you really want to know, yes, we would love to hear your story. Twilight said eagerly. We want to know how it all started, how you became Batman. Bruce deeply sighed as he thought it over. I'm not even sure if they're ready to hear it all. Would these ponies even understand me, sympathize with me, and comfort me? Have they had the same experience of losing loved ones before? But regardless, I at least expect them to understand. So here goes nothing. Bruce thought. Well, it all started when I was 8 years old. At that time, my whole childhood and life were changed forever. When the following happened, he began. Flashback scene in Gotham. Bruce was starting to feel uncomfortable at the sight of the actors dressed as bats performing at the theater. He was seated alongside his parents, Thomas and Martha Wayne. The more Bruce watched them, the more he got scared. A nightmare kept flashing in his eyes of seeing bats which he saw before in that dry well fly by in a frightening manner. He looked up to his father, and begged to leave the theater. Noticing the fear in his son's eyes, he nodded and took his family out of the theater. They left through the back door of the building. Martha was concerned about Bruce once they exited the door. What's wrong, Bruce? She asked. No, it was me. Thomas lied. I just needed some fresh air. He didn't want to worry his wife with the thought of something troubling in their son's mind. A little bit of opera goes a long way. Right, Bruce? He said, winking at him. Bruce made a tiny nervous smile in response. Come on. Let's go. Thomas directed his family. As they were about to walk through a trash-infected alleyway, a man approached them with a strange object in his hand. Once he got close, he held up a gun directly at Thomas and Martha. Wallets, jewelry. Come on, fast, he demanded. Thomas stood right in front of his wife and their son to protect them, while holding his hands up. That's fine, he said. Fast, the gunman demanded again. Take it easy. Take it easy. Thomas calmly said. He realized that the best way to get out of the dangerous situation was to comply with his demands calmly, while not posing any threat. Martha held Bruce tightly in her arms to keep him safe. "Here you go," Thomas said, surrendering his wallet to the robber. However, right before he could take it, Thomas dropped it on ground. "It's fine. It's fine," he said, trying to ease the tension of the robber's hostility. The man bent down to grab the wallet from the ground, while still keeping his eyes and his gun on him to make sure he didn't make any sudden movements for an attack or an escape. "Just take it and go," Thomas said. "I said jewelry," the robber repeated. He then suddenly pointed his weapon at Thomas's wife for her necklace. Thomas instinctively jumped in front of her to protect her from him. "Hey!" he shouted before the gun fired on him, receiving a bullet to his chest. He fell on the wet ground mortally wounded. Martha screamed in terror, while shouting his name. The robber then grabbed her necklace, and tore it off, before he gunned her down as well. He cast one look at Bruce before quickly running off. Bruce was stunned at everything that happened in one night. He couldn't believe it with his eyes. He looked down at his mother, who was lying dead on the ground. He then turned to see his dying father casting a look of sympathy and courage to him. "Bruce, it's okay," he comforted him, who was about to burst into tears. Thomas then whispered his last words, which Bruce would never forget, and would also develop him later on in life. "Don't be afraid." He closed his eyes, and died before Bruce's eyes. Bruce quietly sobbed as he had lost his precious parents whom he loved dearly. Never had he thought that he would lose them at a young age. He no longer had a parent to look after him, care for him, nurture him, and protect him from the cruel city and cruel world. He was sitting there all alone, wondering helplessly as to what his future would look like. From the looks of it, it appeared grim and dark. At the police station, young Bruce was sitting on one of the chairs. At that moment, a young officer walked in front of him with Thomas's cost in his hand. He bent down to Bruce's level with a sympathetic smile on his face. "Is this your father's?" he asked. When Bruce didn't reply, Gordon decided to comfort him by clothing him with his father's coat. "There you go," he said. "It's okay. It's okay," he softly and comfortingly assured him as he soothed him with his hand on his cheek. A moment later, Commissioner Labe entered the room. "Gordon," he called. Gordon left the room, after giving another look of sympathy to Bruce. Labe then also smiled comfortingly to Bruce. "Hey. Good news, we got him, son," he reported. Bruce was relieved to hear that his parents' killer has been arrested and jailed for his heinous crime. However, he was still unhappy. He felt guilt arousing in his soul as he contemplated the scene that happened to him. He thought that, if he had done something about it, his parents would still be alive. He couldn't bear the thought of being partially responsible for his parents' death. With that in heart, it caused him greater sorrow. A funeral took place a couple days later. All of the Waynes' friends and supporters returned from the cemetery after Bruce's parents were buried. "You're in excellent hands. We'll be watching the Empire," one of the people said to Bruce. "When you grow up, it'll be waiting for you." After he left, the family butler Alfred took Bruce inside their home, Wayne Manor. Bruce was alone in his room, succumbing to his depressed thoughts. "I thought I might prepare a little supper," Alfred said as he entered the bedroom. Bruce gave no reply or acknowledgement. Seeing his saddened state, Alfred thought he needed some alone time to recover. "Very well," he said as he was about to leave. "Alfred?" Bruce called. "Yes, Master Bruce?" Alfred asked. "It was my fault, Alfred." Bruce blamed himself as he began to sob. "I made them leave the theater. If I hadn't gotten scared." No, it was nothing that you did." Alfred comforted. "It was him and him alone. Do you understand? I miss them, Alfred. I miss them so much." Bruce embraced his butler while crying. Alfred embraced him back soothingly. "So do I, Master Bruce. So do I," Alfred said. Flashback ended. That's how it happened. Little did I know that this very path and experience would lead me to be the Batman, the Dark Knight. Bruce finished. The main six had tears on their eyes as they listened to his tragic story, especially Scootaloo, Applejack, and Apple Bloom. He somehow reminded them of their parents when they were younger. The Apples lost their parents while growing up, whereas Scootaloo's parents hadn't really visited her at all in Ponyville, or kept in touch with her. That experience made her depressed, and doubtful if they really care about her. So Batman's story hit close to home in some way. That, sniff, is so horrible. I'm so sorry, Bruce. Sniff, that must have been so, sniff, traumatic. Scootaloo sobbed. Awful, yeah, bats. My family and I lost our parents when Big Mac and I were foals, while Apple Bloom was a little baby. Worst time of our lives. So we feel ya, big guy. Applejack said. I'm sorry to hear that, Applejack. Losing a parent is not something to get over, especially for me. I realized how cruel my world is through a hard and painful way, but I took that pain and fear, and made them the very weapons to cast upon those who inflict these things upon innocent people. Bruce said. Whoa. But isn't that like revenge? That can never bring back the ones whom you lost, Batman. Fluttershy said. Revenge is not the same as justice. While I agree with you, Fluttershy, justice must be given in the same way in which criminals try to hurt people. Except that there is one line of distinction that separates me from my enemies, never taking a life. Bruce said. Really? You don't kill criminals. You just beat them to a pulp until they surrender. Rainbow asked. I'm not an executioner. I will continue to fight criminals in the same manner in which I've been doing for many months, but I will never take a life, not even that of a villain. Otherwise, I would be no better than them. Bruce stated. Twilight and Scootaloo smiled at that sentiment. Wow. That's amazing, Bruce. That is what I call a noble hero. I'm glad that you follow that approach. Because it would serve you no benefit, by becoming a murderous psychopath, if you allowed that horrid incident to becloud your reasoning. You're a very strong person. I can see that, said Twilight. Scootaloo nodded in agreement. Thank you, Twilight. I appreciate it. Bruce smiled. Here. I made cupcakes with chocolate icing with your bat symbol on top just for you. Pinky said as she gave a plate full of them. Bruce was warmed by the sympathy and affection they displayed toward them. Perhaps these ponies aren't that bad after all. So they do understand. I honestly wasn't expecting Pinkie Pie to be that supportive and sympathetic. I think those ponies will start to grow on me, he thought. Chapter 10, The Crystal Empire Taken. Scarecrow and his thugs arrived at the Crystal Empire. The train slowly stopped at the station, before it opened its doors, to let the passengers exit the train. Once the villains saw them leave, they vacated the engine car through the broken windows, and ran to the front gates of the Empire. They gazed on the side of the whole kingdom. This fictional world had its wonders and beauties, it seemed to them. Would you look at that? Scarecrow said. This kingdom has its wonderful crystalline structure. I wonder what treasures they have. So this is supposed to be the Crystal Empire? Steese asked. It is purely made out of crystals. Heh, no wonder. King Sombra uses dark crystals as his main weaponry. Sass said. So what are we supposed to do, Doc? Zatch asked. Gentlemen, I believe that fear has its own unique way of terrorizing its foes. You all know how it goes. Scarecrow chuckled. First, we will infiltrate the palace, take out its guards, then attack the royals of the kingdom. The element of surprise is key. Don't forget that. His men nodded in understanding. Afterwards, they hid behind the bushes that were not far from the Empire's gates. They also saw the guards stationed at the gates. The thugs took out their submachine guns, loaded them with ammunition, and aimed them at the guards. One by one, they shot at the guards, while still out of their sight. Once they were down, they moved further towards the gates. They looked left and right to make sure nobody spotted them. Seeing that the area was clear, they proceeded on the road, while holding their weapons. Suddenly, several crystal ponies were seen walking together. They immediately hid behind the houses to avoid being discovered. The ponies continued walking, while having a conversation with each other without even noticing the humans behind them. As soon as they were out of sight, the criminals pressed forward toward their target. They did the same for every house they both passed by, and hid behind to avoid detection from the ponies. After successfully passing through the city, They finally reached the palace. However, they spotted more guards patrolling the perimeter. The thugs once more aimed their guns at the guards, while hiding at the side of a house. "We should take those guys out too. They're blocking our only entrance to the palace," Steve suggested. Scarecrow thought of a new tactic to take them down. "Actually, I have an alternative for that," he said, smirking. He grabbed one of his smoke grenades, pulled the pin, and threw it right at the guards. Once it landed, it blew yellow smoke right in front of the guards, the fear toxin. They were coughing violently until their fears began to overwhelm them. Intoxicated by the hallucinogen, they saw King Sombra conquering the Crystal Empire, and enslaving all the ponies, like he did during his reign of terror years ago. Then they saw themselves surrounded by purple crystals which grew larger and larger, until they formed together into a huge ravenous jaw, and swallowed them whole. The thugs saw the guards panting in terror, and rolling on the ground helplessly. "You've had these before, boss?" Zatch asked. "Of course. It's my secret weapon," Scarecrow proudly replied. "How come you never used them on those stinking police and the Batman?" one thug asked. "We shouldn't be too indulgent on our accessories, now should we?" Scarecrow excused. "Come on, let's go." They passed by the intoxicated guards, and entered into the palace. After they closed the front doors, they walked through the hallway. They once again marveled at the sparkling texture of everything they passed by. The more they wondered, the more envious they felt, since they were from the filthy streets of Gotham. They wished that Gotham had the beauty and splendor which the Crystal Empire possessed. Why should they live in Gotham, or, even worse, be held in Blackgate Prison or Arkham Asylum, if they could dwell within a beautiful kingdom such as this? Once again, they were hindered by more guards, only this time, they were spotted by them. The sentinels confronted the human intruders, and pointed their spears at them. "Halt, strange creatures. Do not move," one of them ordered. "Drop your weapons." "Who are you?" another one demanded. Scarecrow and his thugs deviously smiled at each other as they thought of their same approach they had used on the engineer earlier. "We will gladly show you our real identity," Scarecrow said. Shining Armor and Cadence sat on their thrones peacefully together. After having to deal with civil matters from citizens all day, they were relieved to have time for themselves as a royal couple. Relaxed sigh. "Finally, we get some leisure time," Shining Armor said. "I say the same, honey. But still, it's always good to help ponies in whatever case they may be in. We're rulers after all," Cadence said. "I know. It just feels tiresome to spend the whole day giving wisdom and judgments on our citizens without some quality time for myself, well, with you mostly. You know what I mean," Shining said. "Of course, dear. You'll always have me by your side, no matter what," Cadence cooed before kissing her husband on the cheek. Both of them then nuzzled each other affectionately. Suddenly, a loud commotion could be heard outside the throne room. The rulers looked toward the closed doors, and wondered what was going on. Even the two bodyguards who were standing on either side of the throne below raised their spears in anticipation of a coming threat. "What's going on out there?" Shining asked. "I don't know. Are the guards being attacked?" Cadence asked. At that moment, the doors burst open with guards gasping and panting in fear. They fell on the floor before the bewildered royals and bodyguards. "Help! Help us! Save us! Stop it, Sombra! Stop!" one of the guards shrieked. "Sombra! He's back!" Candace shouted. "Not only that, but he's got some helpers," a strange sinister voice called out. Scarecrow revealed himself before Cadence, and Shining Armor with his men behind him. The royals gasped in shock as they beheld strange bipedal creatures with odd objects on their grasp for the first time. The bodyguards rushed in front of them in battle stance. Unfortunately, they were shot down by the thugs before they could seize them. "Who are you?" Cadence demanded. "The name is Dr. Jonathan Crane, expert in psychology and hallucinogens, which was flawlessly demonstrated before your highnesses," he introduced himself. "But you can call me the Scarecrow." He put his scarecrow mask back on as soon as he mentioned his alter ego. "Scarecrow, huh? So you work for King Sombra?" Shining demanded. "Precisely." Scarecrow said, oblivious to the arrows of Steez and some of the other thugs. Where did you come from? I don't think we've seen your species before. Cadence asked, igniting her horn in battle stance. It doesn't matter where we come from. What matters is our plan. Scarecrow said, allow me to further demonstrate how our plan will succeed, because this is how King Sombra will rule this empire once again. Cadence fired her magic blast at the men. They jumped out of the way, before it could hit them. They fired their shots at the royals, but Cadence shielded herself, and shining with her magic to deflect the bullets. Even though she never saw those type of weapons, she could tell that they were designed to shoot something harmful. After the men were done firing, Cadence broke up her shield. But something was not right. Scarecrow was not seen with his men. Where did he go? Shining asked. Behind you. Scarecrow said, spraying the toxin on them both. They were blinded at first, until they saw him, and his crew as walking purple crystals with red eyes and sharp teeth, laughing evilly. They fell on the floor screaming in terror until the corrupt doctor stood over them with a large smile on his face. Hail King Sombra, he said. Chapter 11, Bonding Time. Early in the morning, Bruce arose from the bed Twilight gave to him within her library home. After brushing his teeth and bathing, he put his batsuit back on, and headed downstairs to have breakfast. In the kitchen, Twilight and Spike were having pancakes, while talking with each other. Batman noticed a plate of pancakes reserved for him on the table. Good morning, Bruce. Twilight greeted. Spike waved at him, smiling. Good morning, Twilight. Batman greeted back, before nodding to Spike. Hey, Spike. How was your rest? Did you sleep well? Twilight asked before taking another bite. It wasn't too bad. However, you might want to bring a more comfortable mattress in the guest room, said Batman. Sorry about that. I'll keep that in mind, said Twilight. Batman started to take a bite of the pancakes. To him, it had the same sweetness and flavor of the pancakes he had back at Wayne Manor. Good. Thanks again. Anytime, Bats. Spike replied. By the way, I couldn't stop thinking about your story you told us about last night at the farm. Twilight recalled. It really made me wonder about the state of your own home. Was Gotham always like that? Was it always full of evil and crime 24/7? Do you really need to know the specific state of Gotham's citizens? Batman hesitantly sighed. I'm just curious to know because, how in Celestia's name were you able to survive its cruelty during all those years of suffering and emotional pain? Twilight shouted. It's just unthinkable. I get what you're saying, Twilight. Yes, I faced plenty of dangerous challenges while growing up. Nonetheless, I did not give up any hope of trying to change Gotham for the greater good. Though I can't tell you how long Gotham has been corrupt, I will tell you how I emerged victorious over my enemies. It was this, never being afraid. Batman said, never being afraid. Spike asked, puzzled. Being afraid of what? Being afraid of something which you don't truly understand. Batman somberly replied. The unicorn and dragon then pondered on what he just said. If you do not comprehend the threat which is in front of you, and recognize its detrimental effects, you will have the natural tendency to run from it. That's why it's important to understand whom you're facing against knowing your enemy so that instead of running from it, you will stand against that foe with the expedient resources to defeat it. Batman lectured. Both Twilight and Spike said in unison. When I learned that painful lesson, I realized the full truth. I never really understood the depth of the cruel reality I was living in, until after my parents died, he grimly said. So it was at that moment that you became Batman? Spike asked. Yes, he said before resuming and eating his breakfast. After 2 minutes of silence and eating, Twilight asked another question to continue the conversation. So you're just a hero. Is that really it? Twilight again asked. I don't see myself as a hero. I look upon myself as a symbol that everyone can look up to, said Batman. As a man, I can be corrupted. As a mortal, I can be destroyed. But as a symbol, I can be incorruptible and indestructible. I do not fight against crime for my sake, I fight for the sake of others, so that they can learn from me, and be inspired to stand against evil. Wow. That's so awesome. I wish I can be like you, Batman. Spike said. Being yourself is a better way, Spike. Batman advised. I agree, Batman. Twilight concurred. Well, I spoke about myself quite enough. What about you guys? You haven't told me about yourselves yet. What is this world all about? The Dark Knight asked. Oh. Well, as you know, this is Equestria. We believe in the magic of friendship. It has saved us several times from our enemies that tried to take over Equestria. Friendship is the way to happiness and peace, so long as we make friends, and help those who struggle with friendship problems. Within the Everfree Forest, there is a tree called the Tree of Harmony. It has 6 elements: magic, loyalty, kindness, honesty, generosity, and laughter. I represent the element of magic. Rainbow Dash represents loyalty, Fluttershy kindness, Applejack honesty, Rarity generosity, and Pinky laughter. Twilight explained. Interesting. Batman commented. Yep. With all these 6 elements, all of Equestria is in peaceful harmony. So what do you think? She asked. So friendship is what gives you ponies peace and joy in the whole world. I find that to be very arbitrary and unrealistic, to be honest. Batman replied. What do you mean? Spike asked. In my world, none of that works at all, especially magic. It is called reality. Reality doesn't sugarcoat the lives of people on Earth, because in that life, it is harsh and relentless. You may deny it all you want, but in my world, that is a fact. Batman stated. So you don't think that friendship can work for you? If you were to just give it a try, it will do great wonders for you. I'm not lying when I say this. Twilight argued. I have little hope that friendship of yours would work for Gotham. Batman clarified. However, I'm sure you will be kind enough to show me how this functions here. But don't forget to help me find a way out of this world. You said the princess of this land can help us. Yep. I'll take you to her. She and Luna would be thrilled to see you. Twilight squealed. Follow me. Twilight and Spike led Batman from Ponyville to the train station. While they were waiting for the train to come, Batman, except Twilight and Spike, noticed the medic ponies taking the unconscious engineer to the hospital at the far left of the road. He wondered as to what happened to that pony. Do you like to read books, Batman? Twilight asked. Batman was snapped out of his thoughts once she spoke. I do, at least the books I'm interested in. Batman replied. Great. I'm sure we'll be great study buddies. We will have so much in common. Twilight excitedly squealed. Batman ignored her, and resumed his previous thoughts. Just then, he spotted a smoke grenade right next to his feet. He picked it up and examined it. Once he scrutinized the grenade, he noticed a very familiar small handwriting on the top of the cylindrical grenade. Fear is here. Then he realized that Scarecrow was around here, and that the ponies could be in danger, as long as he was around. If he had to stop Crane from causing harm and damage in this innocent world, he had to do something immediately. Wasting no time, he put the grenade in his utility belt, and turned to his friends. You two, a threat is at large in this land. Scarecrow and his thugs are around here somewhere. You go to the princess to warn her, while I search for clues. He sternly alerted. Scarecrow. Who's Scarecrow? Twilight asked. He's also known as Dr. Jonathan Crane, a psychologist and former professor in the same field, also from Gotham. He's known as the Master of Fears and the holder of the fear toxin, which can bring your worst nightmares to life, while you're under the influence. Batman explained. Really? So Scarecrow is like King Sombra? Twilight shrieked. Who's that? Batman asked. Sombra was the former ruler of the Crystal Empire. He enslaved and terrorized the Crystal Ponies for many years until Celestia and Luna defeated him. Just recently, he came back to retake the Empire, while trying to destroy us with his dark crystals, and using our fears to weaken us. Cadence defeated him at the end with the love and hope of the Crystal Ponies. I just hope he never comes back. Twilight said. In that case, I hope so too. Batman said. Look, there's the train. Spike pointed. The train slowly approached the station, and made a full stop, before it opened the doors. Great. Come on, Bruce, let's go to him. Twilight said as she turned back to him, seeing him completely gone. Hey, where did he go? Spike asked. I don't know. He just disappeared, while we weren't looking. Twilight said. All aboard. Next stop is Canterlot City, the conductor announced. Come on. I'm sure our friends will show him where Canterlot is. Twilight said to Spike as they got on board the train. The train then took off to Canterlot. Batman looked down from the rooftop of the station. I need to find clues to Crane's whereabouts. The sooner I find them, the better it will get. I hope Gotham is doing fine in my absence. Batman said before using his grappling gun to take off. Chapter 12, Investigation. Where am I? Said the engineer as he was passed out from the fear toxin yesterday. He slowly opened his eyes, and saw himself in a hospital bed with a cast on his left arm and several bandages over his body. Then he saw a pony nurse looking at him with care and pity. Nurse Rigert. I'm in a hospital. What happened to me? He cried. A number of bystanders spotted you lying on the grass unconscious and severely injured. Once they informed us of your predicament, we took you here. Rigert explained. What happened to you? I was engineering the train in our destination for the Crystal Empire yesterday. But suddenly, there were strange, alien, bipedal creatures that broke through the engine car of the train where I was, explained the engineer. They attacked me, and infected me with that mysterious gas, which gave me some sort of, I dunno, nightmare fuel. I don't know how to describe it. He moved out of frustration which caused him to wince in pain. Don't move. Okay. You're going to be fine. Rigert comfortingly assured. So bipedal monsters intoxicated you. What did they look like? Well, from what I remember, one of them being their leader apparently was in a suit, while his face looked like a scarecrow or something. The rest of them looked like hairless monkeys wearing city clothes. They had those weird-looking weapons in their grasp, said the engineer, shaking in fear. Oh my, that sure sounds terrifying. Anything else? Rigert asked. Even worse. After they sprayed me with that infectious gas, or whatever, I had a horrifying illusion, where I saw large creatures that looked like demons or something with large claws and sharp teeth trying to kill me. I screamed in horror at the sight, and they all laughed wickedly together, the engineer said, before breaking down in tears. There, it's okay, it's fine. It's all over. Okay. Whatever those creatures are, we will make sure Princess Celestia hears of this, and she will bring them all to justice, comforted Rigert, stroking his right arm. Thank you, he replied, giving a small smile. Meanwhile, Batman soared high in the sky with his Batcape. Just below him was a building that appeared to be a small mansion with a red cross at the top. It also had a sign with the same logo. This has to be a hospital. I need to find that unconscious pony, and see if he was a victim of Crane. Batman planned. He descended from the sky, and landed right in front of the hospital. Back inside, the engineer was getting comfortable on the bed, although still in slight pain from the incident. I must have fallen from the train, while it was in full speed or something. I probably broke my left arm from the hard fall I guess, he muttered to himself. 2 full minutes had passed as he was relaxing, and tried not to think back on the traumatizing experience he had on the train. That was truly something he never thought would happen during his occupation. He had no clue where those creatures came from, or who they were, but they certainly were the definition of trouble. Just then, Nurse Rigert came rushing into the emergency room with a nervous smile on her face. Excuse me, sir, were you expecting any visitors today? She asked. No. Why? He asked. Well, there is somebody or someone who would like to see you, she nervously said. Really? One of my family members. I haven't even told any of them of what happened to me. I don't know if I can even the patient yelled as he turned to see the sudden appearance of Batman standing on his right side. Rigert slowly moved backwards, and locked the door, so that nobody would see what Batman was going to do. Are you still in pain? Batman politely asked. He bent down to get a closer look at the patient. The latter was scared at first due to the fearful appearance of the Dark Knight. However, after he asked him with a caring and polite tone, his fear slowly abated. I'm recovering a bit. Thanks for asking, the pony thanked. What is your name? Batman asked. Engine Run. I'm the engineer of the train that functions as the main transporter for Ponyville, he introduced. I'm Batman, he said, nodding. Batman. Yeah, very interesting name. Are you from? Engine tried to ask until interrupted. I would love to become acquaintances, but I have a pressing matter at hand. I need you to answer all my questions to the best of your ability. Understood? Batman sternly stated. Yes. Engine Run complied. What happened to you? Were you involved in any accident? Batman asked. It wasn't an accident technically, but I think I was thrown off of my train yesterday. I might have broken my left arm, and suffered some scratches in the process. But I can't say for sure, since I don't remember. Engine explained. What do you remember then? Batman asked. I remember seeing a group of bipedal creatures who were like you, except they were trying to harm me, after breaking into my train. One of them had that freaky scarecrow mask, while he was wearing a suit. He sprayed me with that strange gas, that somehow made my world a total nightmare. From what I saw, they appeared as horrific devils trying to tear me apart with their sharp teeth and claws. After that, everything went black. That's all I remember. Engine Run finished. When he mentioned the word scarecrow mask, Batman then knew he was talking about Scarecrow. But why would they break into his train? Were they trying to steal something from there? Were they heading toward a certain destination? What is their endgame in all this? Batman thought as he pondered on the information given to him. Think now, where was your train supposed to travel to yesterday? Batman further asked. It was set to travel to the Crystal Empire. I really hope those creatures didn't hurt any of my passengers. Engine Run replied. Crystal Empire. That's what Twilight told me about this morning. So if the train was going to the Crystal Empire, and they broke into the train, it could be possible they threw him out, thus, having all access to travel to the Empire. But why? Batman realized in thought. He reached to his utility belt, and took a syringe that had liquid therein, and brought it near to Engine Run. The patient got a little nervous seeing the syringe. What is that? He asked. It is the antidote for the fear toxin. You need this to get the hallucinogen out of your system completely. Batman explained. The fear toxin. That's what it was. Engine asked, confused. Correct. Now, hold still. Batman instructed before injecting the antidote on his right arm. Engine slightly winced in pain but then relaxed. Redert was worried of what Batman was going to do to him at first, but then eased down once she heard it was an antidote for the poison. There. Are you still alright? Batman asked. Yes, I think. Engine said. Good. Batman put the syringe back in his utility belt, and stood up above him. I'll check on you later. I hope you recover. Then he walked over to Nurse Redert. Take good care of him. I'm going to find Scarecrow and his men and apprehend them. In the meantime, alert Ponyville of their dangerous existence. Oh, I will do. Thank you, Mr. Redert said. Batman, he said before walking out of the room. Batman. I like that name. Wait, is he a subspecies of bats? Redert rhetorically asked. Batman shot his grappling hook on a tall building, and rose up toward it. He then jumped from the top of the building, and opened his capacious wings, and soared high in the air again. They will surely cause mayhem in the Crystal Empire once they arrive. I need to get there, before they cause any irreplaceable damage, said Batman. Chapter 13, The Rising Threat. Princess Celestia just finished her royal meeting with Fancy Pants and the others within the Palace of Canterlot. Once they departed from the throne room, Celestia rejoined with her sister Luna in the hallway. Well, a decent morning so far. The meeting went better than expected. Celestia said. I'm glad it went well, sister. Luna said. My night shift keeps getting better and better every night. Really? How so? Celestia curiously asked. More ponies are starting to become more open and honest of how they feel, and what challenges they face, especially during their dreams and nightmares. That allows me to understand them more clearly than before. Luna explained, sighing in satisfaction. I'm very proud of them, and you too, Lulu. Celestia said, smiling tenderly. Thank you, sister. Luna smiled. Before they cloud embrace, a letter magically appeared in front of Celestia. Surprised of receiving a letter unexpectedly, she opened up the letter with her magic and read what was written. What is it, sister? What does it say? Luna eagerly asked. After she was finished reading the letter, she closed it back with the same calm demeanor. It's Twilight, she said as she has both some alarming news and exciting news to share with us. Although she did not specify what those news are in her letter, she will arrive here shortly. My, she must be really keen to see our reactions herself by telling us personally. Luna stated. Meanwhile, Batman continued soaring in the sky as he was on his way to the Crystal Empire, to confront Scarecrow and his lackeys. He carefully looked down below, to observe any suspicious signs of their activity. Seeing none so far, he kept himself in the air, while on his way to the kingdom. But while flying, he started to become curious about King Sombra whom Twilight talked about earlier. If this King Sombra was as terrifying and powerful as she described him to be, is there a likely chance he might return? I cannot even imagine what he looked like during all those years ago, when he ruled this Crystal Empire. Was he like Scarecrow? Both known as Masters of Fear, I see. If they ever met together, who knows what sort of permanent damage they might make here in Equestria, or in Gotham. Batman pondered. Hey, Batman, a familiar young voice called out. Huh. Batman wondered. Once he looked down, he saw Scootaloo waving her hoof at him. He slowly descended all the way to the ground right in front of her. She ran to him, and hugged his right leg affectionately. Great to see you, again. I was wondering where you were after not seeing you in Twilight's library, she happily greeted. Nice to see you too, Scoots. Batman greeted back, although in a monotone voice. However, I can't talk right now. There is a potential threat in the Crystal Empire at the moment. You help Nurse Redhead alert your neighbors of the threat, while I deal with it, he ordered. But Scootaloo grabbed hold of his cape, just as he was about to walk away. Wait. I want to go with you. I want to see you in action. Scootaloo pleaded. No. You stay here. I don't want you to get hurt. Batman sternly forbade. He also roughly removed his cape from her grasp. Please, she begged again. Without another word, Batman took off to the air with his grappling hook and cape. She watched him soar away to his destination. Oh, come on. I hate to miss out all the fun. Scootaloo pouted. But then, she got an idea. Maybe I could just go to the Crystal Empire myself, and see him kicking villain, but while I'm hiding. Yee, I'm so excited, she squealed. She then ran back to Ponyville. Back at Canterlot. After approximately 10 minutes, Twilight and Spike arrived at the throne room, and kneeled before Celestia and Luna. We came here as fast as we could, princesses. You absolutely won't believe what I have to share. Twilight exclaimed. Please do share, Twilight. What is it? Celestia asked. Well, first off, there is a new creature here in Equestria which we have never seen before, and he is from an alternative dimension where a species called humans inhabit it. Twilight explained. The creature's name is Batman. Celestia and Luna looked at each other, slightly surprised at the news and completely intrigued by the fact of a newcomer visiting Equestria. Batman. Is this creature a subspecies of bats? Luna asked. Not exactly. He is a human dressed as a bat, since he is actually a defender and crime fighter of a city called Gotham in his world. That's where he came from. Twilight replied. Very interesting, Twilight. I assume this Batman is friendly. Celestia asked. Yes. He is. You will actually like him once you get to know him. Twilight said. Spike nodded in agreement. I see. It is very rare we have alien strangers from other worlds visiting our own. This Batman sounds very intriguing to me. I wonder if he is a watcher of the night, since bats are nocturnal. Luna said, smiling. Indeed. It would be a pleasure to meet him. I believe that was the exciting news you wanted to share. Celeste asked. Yes. The alarming news is that. Twilight spoke before a crystal guard burst through the doors of the throne room. Your Highnesses. I have alarming news, he shouted in terror. Twilight and Spike were startled by his abrupt interruption. What is it, Solitaire? Luna asked in authoritative tone. The Crystal Empire is under attack. There are several bipedal creatures taking dozens of hostages at the moment. One of them is their leader. He calls himself the Scarecrow. He fearfully uttered the name. Everybody else gasped in the room. That's somewhat what Twilight was going to tell you. Spike said. How do you know about this? Who informed you of the attack? Celeste asked, raising an eyebrow. Batman did. In fact, he was the one who sent us to inform you of the rising threat from those creatures. However, neither of us knew they were attacking the Empire, well, as far as I know. Twilight explained. Celeste and Luna then pondered on what she said. Very well. Celeste said before addressing the Crystal Guard. What of Cadence and Shining Armor? They have been captured by the terrorists. They also managed to slaughter several of my comrades, before they even got their hooves on them. I escaped their brutal attack, to let your majesties know, he said, kneeling. They captured my brother and my sister-in-law. Twilight screamed in shock. They better not hurt them. We need to make haste. Luna, gather the royal guard together. We will march against those bipedal monstrosities and rescue our family and friends from those fiends. Celestia commanded. Luna nodded before heading out of the room. Twilight, see if this Batman can assist us. Celestia ordered. In Gotham City, King Sombra saw everything that happened in Equestria through his green orb on top of Wayne Tower. He saw the work of Crane and his men in the Crystal Empire and Twilight informing Celestia and Luna of their attack. He then switched to the side of Batman flying towards the Crystal Empire to confront his enemies. Ha 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 ha. This is going to be so much fun, he hissed gleefully. Well, with my army well prepared for a full-scale invasion of Equestria and Dr. Crane doing the dirty work for me in my rightful kingdom, I believe it is time to make things more savory. He looked upon his brainwashed army of Gothamites saluting him, and raising their weapons, while shouting their battle cries. Chapter 14, Batman vs. Scarecrow. Gordon witnessed the King of Shadows taking over all of the Gothamites. He was shocked beyond belief at what he saw, a mysterious dark eggman making a scene, in brainwashing the entire city of Gotham, including the very ones whom he worked with. What the my god? What is that? He's taking over all of Gotham. I have to do something. Gordon shouted as he ran back to his house. Sweetie, listen, I need you to stay here no matter what. You understand? Gordon somberly ordered. Barbara was a little stunned by his abrupt appearance at first, but still nodded her head in understanding. Yes, dear. What's going on? Is something happening? She asked, worried. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. I love you, dear, he said, kissing her goodbye. Keep our son safe too. He exited out of the door once again, and re-entered his cruiser. He turned the engine on, and activated the sirens. Once he drove off, he tried to contact his comrades in high hopes they were not under Sombra's control. All units converge on northwest of Gotham, 88th Street. All units, do you read? He called out. The call went static as there was no answer. Come on, he vented. Suddenly, a familiar car appeared next to him. Looking through his right window, he immediately recognized the driver of the vehicle, Alfred Pennyworth. The latter also briefly looked through his left window, and saw Gordon next to him. They both pulled over to the side of the street, and exited the driver doors. Alfred, I wasn't expecting you this morning, Gordon said. Well, I was, including all the officers of Gotham. Have you seen Master Wayne by any chance? Asked Alfred. No, I haven't. Why? Gordon asked. He hasn't returned home since yesterday. I tried to contact him to see if he was okay, but he made no response. I started to become worried sick about him. Alfred said, completely worried. Are you serious? I have much trouble on my end too. I have neither seen or heard from Batman during all this time. I have no clue what happened to him, or where he is, but he's gone too. Are there any more people disappearing? Gordon shouted. I really hope this doesn't lead him to suspicion, and asking unneeded questions. Alfred thought. Not that I know of. Well then, have you noticed a strange being making a scene here in the city? Asked Gordon. What being? Alfred asked. As if on cue, a gigantic purple crystal rose up higher than a skyscraper on which King Sombra stood. He wickedly laughed on top, while he beheld his handiwork. Ah, that being. Slaves of Gotham City, today is the day of triumphant destruction. We march against all of Equestria, and take what is rightfully ours. Once we rid ourselves of those disgusting ponies and their high-minded rulers, we will rule over that land and this planet, forever. Ha 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 ha. Sombra spoke. The Gothamites cheered for him, while shouting his name repeatedly. Follow me. Sombra commanded as he ignited his horn and shot a dark beam of magic toward Wayne Tower. The beam struck the building, but it did not destroy it. Instead, it created a large portal through which they could enter Equestria, and commence their conquest. He morphed into a shadowy fog, and entered the portal. All the Gothamites followed him through the portal. Gordon and Alfred saw his work in the portal. I think I have an idea where Batman and Bruce might be. Alfred said, smirking. Gordon looked at him surprised. You gotta be kidding me. Gordon doubted. We must be careful. We might want to keep a low profile. Alfred suggested. They hid behind several cars and trucks, to avoid discovery from Sombra's mind-controlled minions. They ran past the vacated buildings, while still keeping a sharp eye on the Gothamites. Once they were very close to the portal, they saw the approaching army entering the portal. They waited until the right opportunity presented itself for them to enter therein. Suddenly, a police car exploded due to its dark crystal impaling its engine. This caught the attention of the remaining army. Seeing them distracted, Alfred and Gordon walked past the vehicles and quickly entered the portal. Right after that, the remaining army all entered the portal before it closed behind them. In the Crystal Empire, Scarecrow walked past all the hostages who were tied up against the walls of the throne room. Recognizing what he had accomplished, he was ecstatic of what King Sombra will reward him in the end. Excellent job, gentlemen. Now that we have taken over the whole empire for him, he will give us what we have always desired since the beginning, all of Gotham. Scarecrow celebrated. I dunno, boss. Do you think he will keep his word? I know a power-hungry tyrant, when I see one. Steve doubted. I know a benevolent monarch, when I see one. Scarecrow argued. Surely, a king knows how to benefit his own subjects. Is it not one of the requirements of being a good ruler? Seriously, Crane. You actually believe his hoa? A thug screamed as he saw an approaching figure via a glass-stained window. The Batman burst through the window, and landed before the villains. The hostages were frightened at the sight of the dark being. He rose up, and glared right at the criminals in battle stance. Ah, if it isn't the great Batman. I'm quite surprised you managed to find us here. Scarecrow said. Good thing I asked for directions. Batman said before he uttered his intimidating stern words. Release the hostages now and surrender, Crane. Why should I? Don't you see you're in a disadvantage here? There's 12 of us, and only one of you. Crane evilly smirked. I'm not asking again. You know what's in store for you. Batman again sternly threatened. Very well. Scarecrow said before snapping his fingers, signaling them to attack him. His men angrily shouted as they charged at Batman. Batman ducked under one who was going to punch him, and smote him on the chest and the head. He falcon punched another one, while he grabbed another thug's arm, and threw him against Steve's. Sass grabbed his gun and shot at Batman, but the latter raised his arm to block the bullets, and threw his batarang at the gun, which caused it to blow up. Two more thugs raised their guns as well, and began to shoot him. He jumped high in the air, and tackled them to the ground. He bashed both of their heads together to knock them out. He grabbed his grappling gun and shot its hook at Steese, who was just recovering. His leg was caught by the grapple, which dragged him over to Batman. 3 other thugs with sass ran to him to take hhim down, but Batman spun Steese in a circle 3 times, before throwing him against them, knocking them down. Zach raised his gun to shoot, until Batman seized it, and punched him in the face. He smashed the gun on the floor, breaking it to pieces. He then turned to Scarecrow. "It's just you and me now," Batman said. "Indeed." Scarecrow agreed before running to him. Batman blocked his punch by locking his arms together and pushing it back at Crane. Batman then made several punches on his face and kicked him against a wall. Scarecrow got up on his feet and smiled sinisterly. "You have no idea whom you're really up against, Batman." "How predictable," Scarecrow taunted. "What do you mean?" Batman demanded. "Ra's al Ghul may be dead, but I have a new master who will give me everything I ever desired, including Gotham," Scarecrow boasted. "Who is he?" Batman said before grabbing his throat. "Who is he? Where is he? That is so cool," the same voice shouted. Batman immediately recognized who it was. Scootaloo. He looked towards the doors, and saw her standing right by the doors. Unwilling to put her in danger, he knocked out Scarecrow and untied the hostages. The Crystal Ponies were amazed at seeing their unexpected hero fighting those monsters with skill and tact. They were clueless at first, but then shook themselves from their stupor, and thanked their savior. "Don't thank me yet. There is apparently more to come. Run toward Ponyville immediately for safety. Do not stop for anything else," Batman sternly commanded. They nodded in understanding, and left the palace. Batman then turned his attention to Scootaloo. "What are you doing here? Didn't I tell you to stay at Ponyville to alert them of the danger?" he scolded. "I know, I just wanted to see you in action. You were so awesome back there. All those moves and fighting gestures were just eye-catching. Good thing you took care of that Scarecrow guy," she said. "Yes. But this isn't over yet. From what Scarecrow spilled, he was a puppet for someone else. But who would plot to take over the Crystal Empire?" Batman wondered. Maybe King Sombra," Scootaloo guessed. "Twilight told me that he was defeated. However, it could be possible that he could return considering his might and power. But if he comes back, then there would be a higher chance of him destroying everything in his path with greater vengeance than ever before," Batman concluded. "Way ahead of you, Dark Knight," a dark, deep voice spoke. Batman and Scootaloo turned to see King Sombra appear before them in his shadow form until turning to his kingly equine form. "Ah, Batman, in the flesh. It's King Sombra. He's back." Scootaloo screamed in horror, and hid behind Batman. Batman was a bit shocked at his appearance, and then understood what he really looked like. "You must be King Sombra," he said, glaring at him. "And how do you know me?" "Precisely, Dark Knight. I have been watching you for a long time. Your strengths, your weaknesses, your victories, everything. Also, I have a great surprise for you," Sombra said, pointing at the approaching army outside of the castle. Batman looked through the broken window, and saw his very people under the Dark King's control. Shocked and angered at the sight, he faced him. "What have you done?" Batman shouted in rage. "I've been quite busy in Gotham. You see. Of course, I can't have you trying to stop me from achieving my total victory," Sombra said, shooting his dark beam of magic at Batman. The latter shielded himself, but unfortunately, the beam got to him anyway. He grunted in pain from the blast. "Batman. No," Scootaloo shouted before being restrained to the wall by Sombra's magic. "I want to thank you for detaining my prey, Scootaloo. I wouldn't have done it without you," Sombra taunted. Scootaloo then began to sob. "No. Leave him alone. Please," she begged. Sombra then levitated Batman via his magical cage he made, and took off through the window, while maniacally laughing in triumph. Ha 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 ha. Chapter 15, Fear Conquers. Cough, cough, cough. "Whoa, where are we?" Gordon coughed, looking up toward the blue sky. Alfred stood up on his feet, after they both fell from the portal which Sombra and his army went through. To his amazement, everything around them was cartoony and animated. Alfred was not into much cartoons while growing up. Still, he was somewhat familiar with the animated setting, since he was exposed to it when he was younger. Gordon, however, was very familiar with this dimension. No, this has got to be a complete dream we are in. Gordon shouted. "SHHHHH. The Gothamites will hear us." Alfred whispered. Gordon looked in his direction, and saw Sombra's army marching toward the Crystal Empire. "Let's hide over there." Gordon followed Alfred to a nearby bush. They hid behind it to avoid discovery and to see what they'll do next. "What is this place? Are we in a different dimension?" Alfred asked. "It appears so. This setting looks so familiar. I've seen my daughter watch this show. I think it's called My Little Pony or something like that." Gordon recalled. "So cartoons are real. I thought they were fiction." Alfred wondered. "This is hard to believe. So this is where Batman has been this whole time, huh? I can imagine what his reaction was when he came here." Gordon chuckled. "I can imagine the same for Master Wayne, Gordon." Alfred chuckled back. "Nonetheless, we need to find them, and figure out a way to reclaim our people. And this, King Sombra, whom they have been chanting about." Alfred began. "We'll continue to terrorize our city and obviously this land, if we don't do something about this." Gordon finished for him. "We will need Batman's help, of course. But how will we be able to stop that monster? I think I found your answer." Alfred replied, pointing at a group of ponies who were about a mile from them. Afar off were Princesses Celestia and Luna, the main six, Spike, and the Royal Guard. As they were walking, they were discussing amongst themselves as to how they could defeat Scarecrow and his thugs and rescue Cadence, Shining Armor, and the Crystal Ponies. "This Scarecrow guy is going down. When we get in there, I'm gonna teach that bad guy a lesson." Rainbow Dash boasted. "Count me in. Noppany messes with Cadence and Shining Armor, and gets away with it." Applejack added. "You think Batman already made it in there?" Fluttershy asked. "I'm sure he's taking on those baddies right now. You might be right. Batman will handle them." Spike agreed. "He can't do this alone. We have to help him stop Scarecrow. I hope we're not too late." Twilight said, completely worried. "Excuse me," a strange voice called out to them. The ponies looked ahead, and saw two bipedal creatures waving their arms to get their attention. Thinking that they were a part of Scarecrow's crew, the Royal Guard raised their spears, and stood defensively in front of the princesses, main six, and Spike. "Don't move any further. Stay where you are," the guards ordered. The men raised their hands in compliance. "Identify yourselves. Relax. We're friendly. No need to be hostile. My name is Jim Gordon, and this is Alfred Pennyworth. We come in peace." Gordon calmly introduced. The ponies weren't convinced. "How do we know you two are not henchmen of Scarecrow?" Celeste asked, glaring at them. "Wait, you know him? He's here too?" Alfred asked, flabbergasted. "Of course, he is. Are you not his friends?" Luna asked. "We are not by any means. In fact, he is a fugitive from our city, called Gotham in our world. Plus, he's made a number of crimes there. I say this as the police lieutenant of my police department." Gordon confirmed. "Really? So you're the good guys then? Are you friends with Batman?" Spike asked. "By the gods, I sure hope he didn't reveal his identity to them." Alfred worried. "Yes, I am. Alfred is Mr. Bruce Wayne's butler." Gordon replied. Alfred mouthed to the ponies to not say or ask anything about Bruce. The main six were confused at first, since they had no clue of the importance of maintaining a secret identity. But they complied anyway. "Very well then," Celestia said before nodding to the guards. They lowered their spears, and stood beside the princesses. "We came here to look for Batman." Alfred immediately spoke before Gordon could have a chance to speak. "Is he here somewhere? Actually, he's Hoa." Twilight cried out as she looked up at the approaching figure. They all looked up, and saw King Sombra holding Batman in his green and purple cage, while wickedly laughing in victory. Gordon and Alfred were shocked at the sight of their hero being captured by the villain. Batman, they all shouted. Sombra created a large black portal and swiftly entered therein with Batman. Meanwhile, the whole sky turned dark yellow, and large purple crystals sprouted from the ground everywhere. Sombra's army then charged at the side of the heaters once they spotted them. "We got company," Pinky shouted. "All hail King Sombra! All hail King Sombra!" the Gothamites chanted. They encircled Gordon, Alfred, and the ponies, while drawing closer and closer to them. Two of the minions held Scootaloo, Cadence, and Shining Armor and Chains. The heroes were then vastly outnumbered and outgunned by them all. They couldn't figure out what to do in this dire situation. Equestria was in immediate danger as Sombra had once again returned to finish what he had started. Now, they were surrounded by a vast army of Gothamites. How would they win? Suddenly, King Sombra appeared above them, and grinned at their helplessness and weakness. "You poor simple fools, you thought you truly defeated me. Oh, how wrong you were. Never thought you would see me again, ponies," he taunted. "You won't get away with this, Sombra. We defeated you once, and we shall do so again." Cadence defied. "I think not, my dear. Don't you see? I have already won. Equestria and Earth are finally mine to control and rule." Sombra taunted again. The ponies then glared at their adversary. "What did you do to Batman?" Scootaloo cried. "Oh, don't worry, little one. He is in my home now. The both of us will have a very special time together." Sombra giddily hissed. The ponies cringed at the tone of his last word. "Release him, you vile creature," Luna demanded in her canterlet voice. "I don't think I will. Besides, with Gotham at my side, I will rule both the city, Earth, and Equestria," the wicked king boasted. The whole army once more shouted his name worshipfully. "What? No, no, no," a voice angrily protested. Sombra turned to see Scarecrow and his men running to them. He took his mask off to fully vent his raging emotions. "You promised me that I will rule all of Gotham. I did everything you asked me to do, and this is how you repay me." Scarecrow raged. I told you he couldn't be trusted. But you didn't listen." Steez angrily shouted. The sass and half of the thugs were shocked at Sombra's betrayal. The other half were both pleased and nonchalant as they saw it coming. "I'm sorry for your loss, Doctor. Perhaps I can make up for this tragedy of yours." Sombra sadistically spoke. He raised Crane's men in the air via telekinesis. "Hey, what's happening? Put us down, you freak," Zatch demanded. "Oh no, he is gonna kill us," the sass cried out. Sombra spun them in the air 10 times, while shooting his beam of dark magic at them. After several minutes, they fell to the ground, and had green eyes. They looked upon each other with horror and hate in their eyes. "Stay back, you monster," Steez threatened one of the thugs. He took his gun out, and aimed at him. On cue, they all took their guns out, except Sass and Zatch, and aimed at each other, while shouting derogatory words. Then they shot at each other, until they all dropped dead on the ground. Crane looked horrified at seeing his own henchmen kill each other. Then he looked up, and saw Sombra wickedly smirking. "I take it, you like my surprise. How delightful. Now, how about I give you another one?" Sombra exclaimed before shooting his next magical beam at him. Crane screamed in terror as it struck him on the chest. Crane was levitated in the air and slowly mutated into a gigantic purple crystal monster. His crystal arms and legs were slim, his chest appeared as a ribcage, and his head was a large shard with green eyes and purple flames. He breathed green and purple fire while mightily roaring. "Let my reign of fear begin." Sombra smiled. Chapter 16, Batman vs. King Sombra. 10 minutes earlier, Batman was in the midst of darkness that surrounded him completely. Everywhere he looked, it was deep darkness. "Where am I? Am I dead? No, this has got to be a dream," he muttered. He looked around to see if Sombra was around. However, he was nowhere to be found or seen in the midst of the darkness. He was hoping that he would not fail his mission in saving the lives of not only his own people, but also the lives of the ponies who welcomed him and cared for him. Suddenly, angry voices could be heard from afar. Within a moment, he was surrounded by millions of people who glared at him, while some had tears on their eyes. Batman stood there, while watching the people of Gotham encompass him and draw nearer to him. "You failed us, Batman. You were supposed to protect us, and you left us to perish," some of them cried wrathfully. "Where were you when those criminals took over Gotham? Some hero you are," a man scorned. Things got more personal minutes later. Emerging from the angry mob were Alfred, Gordon, and his parents. "You are a freak, Batman. You doomed their families and my family. I should have never allied with you in the first place. That's a mistake I'll never make again." Gordon angrily sneered. The whole crowd then vanished from his eyes, except for Alfred and his family. "Shame on you, Bruce. Your parents would be very ashamed of you. I'm truly disappointed in you. Dressing up as a bat, to feel good about yourself, and doing the police's work is not how you represent the Wayne legacy. I expected better from you." Alfred condescendingly scorned. "Why, Bruce, why didn't you save us from that man? You could have done something, but you didn't. I thought you loved us." Martha said, sobbing to herself. His father gave him an angry and disappointed look. "If you didn't take us out of that theater during that night, we would still be alive. You are no son of mine. You are a complete failure of a son, a scared, naive, insignificant child." Batman's eyes widened in shock and fear during all this. He listened every word they had said to him. To say the least, it struck him emotionally. "Wait, stop. Father, Mother, Alfred," he yelled after them. But it was already too late. They vanished from his sight, leaving him to his thoughts. He kneeled down, took off his cowl, and covered his face with his right hand. Moments after meditating on those harsh, cruel words, he felt a tear fall from his right eye. "No!" he screamed in hearty rage. He was then once more surrounded by the darkness. "This is all a hallucination. This is all a lie. I will never allow anyone, or anybody to perish at the hoof of this monster. No one will fall under my watch. Not now, not ever. I might have made mistakes in the past, but they shouldn't define me of who I am. For I know who I am," he bravely spoke, while wiping the tear from his eye, and putting his cowl back on. "I'm vengeance. I'm the night. I am Batman," he victoriously proclaimed. At that moment, a large orb of golden magic appeared to him. Before he could touch it, it expanded and opened up in all of its bright glory. It encircled Batman, and engulfed him completely. Several minutes later, the golden brightness disappeared as it revealed the Dark Knight with bright blue eyes and a blue crystalline aura encompassing his batsuit. Once he looked down, to gaze at his power, he saw a small crystal heart stamped on his bat symbol. "Whoa, I look dazzling," he muttered. Suddenly, he was taken back from the darkness, and awoke from his slumber. "Why, I'm back. I still have this power on me. I have to give this a try," he said as he noticed himself still in the magical cage Sombra put him. He raised his arms and instantly shot large beams of crystal magic at the top of the cage. The whole cage exploded and dissipated, freeing the Dark Knight. He stood up, and saw the dwelling place of the King of Shadows. "This is probably King Sombra's home. I have to look around, and see if I could find anything else against him," he planned. He walked around the dark crystals, that reassembled a castle. He passed by the drawers and the tables. He also passed by a yard of purple crystals, that reflected all the faces of the ponies Batman met. He even saw Scootaloo's face on one of them. He clenched his fist in anger. "Don't worry, Scootaloo. I'll come for you, for all of you," he thought. Lastly, he stopped in front of a room that appeared to be his bedroom. He walked in, and saw all the artifacts, treasure, crystals, and bones properly stored and laid down. One of them caught his attention, a large dagger made purely out of a pink crystal. He held it up, and saw its beauty. "This should do the trick," he said, smirking. "At the present time, you are all now under my supreme lordship. The Crystal Empire and all of Equestria is under my jurisdiction from this time forth." Sombra exclaimed before his minions and his new prisoners. The main six, the princesses, the guards, Shining Armor, Cadence, Scootaloo, Alfred, and Gordon were all tied up before him, and held down by the Gothamites. The Crystal Crane roared loudly as he stood beside his master. As for you, my pet, you will do as you please. Once I return, I will give you further instructions. Sombra commanded. The beast growled in compliance. Now, if you will excuse me, I have some kingly business to attend to. Sombra dismissed. His army bowed before him, and took the prisoners away. He opened the portal and entered therein. Now for my sweet talk with the Dark Knight, he said, priding in his accomplishment. He entered into his palace with the feeling of self-victory. With just one simple bonus of defeating Batman for good, not many would be able to stop him. He was so close to total domination over Equestria. By eliminating loose ends, nothing would stop him. Just as he entered into the dungeon, he expected Batman to be sulking in his anger, fear, and depression for his utter failures. This would be a sweet moment of triumph for him. But alas, he was not there. The entire cage was gone. I imprisoned him here in my cage. How is he gone? Sombra shouted. After he said those words, a loud noise caught his hearing. He soon caught the source of the noise from his bedroom. He morphed into fog form and swiftly flew to his bedroom to investigate. What is the meaning of this? What he saw stopped his corrupt and dark heart. The Dark Knight was surrounded with the crystal magic aura and fully empowered by the short crystal heart in his chest. You should know better than to allow a complete stranger enter your home. Terrible things can happen. Batman taunted with a smirk. Big mistake on your part. No. This cannot be. How is this possible? Why are you not conquered by your fears? Sombra shrieked in terror. I'll show you how, he menacingly replied. He raised his hands and shot beams of crystal magic at the tyrant. Sombra yelled in pain from the blasts. Enraged by this, he retaliated by igniting his horn, and shooting back his dark magic at his opponent. Batman shielded himself by raising his right arm to block the shots, and flew toward him. He punched Sombra in the face 3 times, kicked him on his left side, and Falcon punched him on his chin. Sombra fell on the ground slightly wounded. However, he was not an easy foe to take down. He raised his hooves, and tried to knock down Batman in a manner in which horses do. Batman rolled his eyes, and kicked him off. You cannot win, Sombra. Batman said. This is my kingdom. My destiny. Sombra protested. He ignited his horn once more, and shot more beams of magic at Batman. He deflected 2 of the blasts, but received the third one on his right leg. He slightly grunted from the shot, but he wasn't too hurt from it thanks to the crystal power. Sombra then fiercely charged at Batman, while the latter held his hands up, to clash with his charging opponent. They both held hooves and hands together in a fierce struggle to dominate the other. You will bow to me. Sombra screamed in desperation. Batman headbutted Sombra, which caused him to lose his balance. Taking advantage of his distraction, he grabbed a battering bomb, and threw it on the ceiling. Wasting no time, he grabbed Sombra by the neck, and ran out of the palace 10 seconds before it exploded. The whole castle crumbled to pieces as it was engulfed in an inferno. The fire caused the whole dimension to shake out of balance, which caused the realm to slowly fade. Batman flew down toward the abyss while holding Sombra, and extending his bat wings. They flew out of the portal before it completely exploded to atoms. They landed on the ground, while catching the attention of everyone around them. Batman, you're okay. Scootaloo shouted in joy. Look. He's glowing with the crystal magic. How did that happen? Shining Armor asked, bewildered. Enough. Sombra silenced them. He pushed Batman off of him before the latter tripped him, held him down, and threw another batarang, which was empowered with his crystal magic, at the chains of his friends. It sliced through the chains, freeing the captives. They cheered for their savior. Gothamites, attack! Sombra angrily commanded. They uttered their war cries as they charged at the heroes. Sombra flew away to meet with the Crystal Crane. Ponies and guards commenced the battle. Celeste ordered them. The main six and the royal guard charged at the approaching army, although they were vastly outnumbered. Alfred and Gordon met up with Batman. Once the latter saw them, he was both surprised and glad to see them again. Of course, he restrained his emotions to focus on the task before him. "Batman, Batman. You're all right," Gordon exclaimed. "Great to see you again, Gordon." Batman greeted before turning to Alfred. "I take it, you're Bruce Wayne's butler." "Indeed, sir," Alfred said, slightly bowing. "Is he all right?" "Where is he?" Gordon asked. "He's fine. I brought him back to Gotham through my portal. He is now safe and sound back in his home," Batman said. "Thank God," Alfred said, playing along. "Good save there, Master Wayne." He chuckled in thought. "Well, that's good news. How are we supposed to defeat this shadowy beast and revive our people from his control?" Gordon asked. A mighty roar shook their attention. They shifted their gaze on the crystal crane as it intimidatingly stepped forward. "Crane, exterminate them all," Sombra commanded as he stood on top of the monster. The beast breathed purple fire on them, before they immediately jumped out of the way. "Take that, you ruffian," Rarity said, kicking at the ones who tried to attack her. A few mind-controlled police officers shot their guns at her, but she protected herself with her magical diamond shield. "Luna, look out," Celestia warned. Luna looked ahead of her, and saw three criminals rushing forward with metal pipes. She blasted them away, and vaporized their weapons. Celestia likewise blasted off her raging attackers from behind her. "Anybody wants to party?" Pinky shouted enthusiastically. She blasted her apple pies from her party cannon, which splattered on the faces of several Gothamites before they could reach her. "Yee-haw!" Applejack cried out, before bucking a Gothamite on the back. He landed on the ground, which casually caused two more of them to trip over him. Applejack then launched her lasso rope around a large group of the minions, and tied them up. "Now, we're talking. Can't catch me, punks," Rainbow Dash bragged. She flew above 10 other Gothamites, while blowing raspberries at them. They threw large objects at her, such as knives, rocks, crystals, and stones. She flew out of harm's way, while making funny faces at them. They screamed in frustrated rage, until they were tackled by a manticore. It roared at them, which terrified them all. Fluttershy landed on the ground and patted on the manticore's head. "Good boy. Glad you were able to help," she cooed. "I can't hold them off for much longer." Twilight stressed, blasting her opponents off one by one. Cadence and Shining were fighting beside the Royal Guard. "Any ideas you may have? All we can do is hold them off. There's too many of them," Cadence said, holding her breath as she fought off the Gothamites. "Where's Batman?" Scootle ran from one crystal to another to hide from the attacking Gothamites. She anxiously hoped Batman would skillfully hold his own against both Crane and Sombra with his new power. She looked ahead, and saw the battle with her very eyes. Batman levitated in the air with his magic and cast a couple of spells to immobilize the monster. Crane roared in irritation as he swatted him away like a fly. He shot tiny shards of crystals at him, but he dodged them all with ease. Alfred and Gordon ran behind Crane, and hid in a bush. "I need to buy him some time. Once we distract him from Batman, he'll be able to strike him on his back head to take him down," Gordon said, taking his firearm out. "Excellent strategy, Gordon," Alfred commended. However, before Gordon could fire on Crane, Sombra vaporized the entire bush, and held the two men through telekinesis. "You won't get away that easily, you pests. I'll have you two watch your precious hero get demolished by my pet. Ha 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 ha," Sombra taunted. Having had enough of Batman's antics, the crystal crane punched him down on the ground, and held him with his large claws that sunk into the ground. He then opened his mouth, and prepared to scorch him to ashes. "Finish him," Sombra exclaimed. Alfred and Gordon looked on helplessly as their hero was about to die. Suddenly, a large rock was thrown at the beast's left eye. He roared in pain, which caused him to loosen his grip on Batman. Then another rock was thrown at him, This time, it was directed at his mouth. The beast accidentally swallowed it whole, which resulted in him gagging and coughing violently. Batman seized the opportunity by using his grappling gun and shooting its hook on the beast's left leg, before running around him in a circle to wrap up his legs. He then pulled with all of his might to bring Crane down to the ground for good. The beast indeed fell hard on the ground and remained unmovable as it was defeated. Batman shot his beam of magic at the astonished King Sombra, knocking him out and releasing both of his close allies from his grasp. He ran to them to check to see if they were okay. "Are you all right?" he asked them. "Better than being Crystal Monster Show, that's for sure." Gordon joked. Alfred chuckled as he and Gordon were lifted up from the ground by Batman. "Where did those rocks come from?" Alfred asked. Batman looked behind him and saw Scootaloo running to him and hugging him round his waist tightly with tears on her eyes. "I had to do something to save you guys. Especially you, Batman. You're my hero." Scootaloo sobbed. Batman looked at her with compassion and softly stroked her mane. "You are a very brave filly, Scootaloo. You're very brave. I'm proud of you." Batman said. "Don't forget about me. I threw that second rock," a familiar voice called out. Batman lifted his face and saw Engine Run coming to him, fully recovered from the accident. "After what you did for me in saving my life, I thought I would return the favor," he said. "Thank you for your help, Engine. I'm proud of you, too." Batman said. "That's it. I'll kill him myself." Sombra screeched in seething rage. He ran forward in a vain attempt to bring one fatal blow on the Dark Knight with his igniting horn. Batman unsheathed the pink crystal dagger, jumped in the air, and brought the whole blade on Sombra's horn. The moment the blade made contact with his horn, it glowed bright pink and shot its aurora around the Dark King. What's happening?" "No," he cried. The magic of love and hope surrounded him completely, and made cracking noises around his body. A pink, glowing hole appeared on his chest, and grew larger and larger. He was screaming in indescribable pain as he levitated in the air. "Bah! No! No! No!" He made his last words, before he was finally disintegrated, and his entire horn was erased. The magic grew even more once it destroyed Sombra, and expanded widely around the entire landscape, vaporizing all the dark crystals in the Crystal Empire, and in the field, turning the sky back to normal with the sun shining bright, and bringing all the raging Gothamites back to their normal state of mind from Sombra's control. They saw themselves in a strange, bright, and new world, and they had no clue or remembrance of what happened during all that time. In Gotham, all the dark crystals vanished into thin air, and all the destroyed property in Gotham was magically rebuilt to its former state. Back in Equestria, Crane transformed back into a human, although he saw himself without any clothes. "It's over. It's all over. My dream, my goal, my vision, all gone," he mourned to himself. Batman looked around, and saw everything play out before him. Equestria and Gotham have been saved. They have won the battle. The epilogue, "I never said thank you." Everything was back to the way it was before King Sombra took over. The people of Gotham were turned back to normal, and both Gotham and Equestria were no longer under Sombra's reign of terror. As the people stood up on their feet, they marveled at the beauty of the Crystal Empire and its entire landscape. Everything somehow looked animated and cartoonish. However, when they cast their eyes on the ponies, they were surprised even more. "What is this place? This is so weird," some of them exclaimed in wonder. "How did we get here? I don't understand this," a woman added. While the people were murmuring and exclaiming their amazement, Batman went over to Crane, who was sulking in his mixed emotions. He summoned an orange robe with black spots via his crystal magic, and clothed the wanted fugitive with it, since he was naked after the mutation tore off his own clothes. Crane looked at him surprised and angry at the same time. Just then, he started to cry. Why did this happen to me?" he sobbed. "You brought this upon yourself, Doctor. This shows how crime actually treats people like you in reality." Batman told him. He picked him up and handed him to Gordon. "I hope you're ready to receive a full sentence for your crimes, Crane," Gordon said, handcuffing the sobbing villain. He took him away, and handed him over to Commissioner Labe and the other officers who were fully recuperated from the brainwashing. Once they took him, Engine Run trotted to his victimizer, and threw a mud ball at his face with scorn. "This is for traumatizing me back in my brain, you cowardly fiend. I hope you never come out of prison in your world ever again." Engine said. Crane said nothing to retort. "Well, looks like you have a lot to answer for, Doc. Take him away, boys." Labe ordered. They took him away along with the other criminals whom the police immediately subdued, after they were all turned back to normal. Labe then faced Engine Run, who smiled at him. "You look like an interesting character, little fella. What's your name?" Labe asked kindly. "I'm Engine Run, the engineer for the train of Ponyville. What's yours, sir?" Engine said. "I'm Commissioner Labe of the Gotham City Police Department. A pleasure to meet you in this strange world here. How did we get here?" Labe asked. "From what I heard, King Sombra mind-controlled you guys and made you nearly take over Equestria. Luckily, Batman and our own heroes were able to save the day." Engine said. "Batman? He's here too?" Labe asked, shocked. "Yep. He saved me from that scarecrow guy, and defeated King Sombra. He's right over there." Engine said, pointing to the Dark Knight who was talking to Gordon and Alfred. Considering both Run's statements, and what the hated vigilante had done, Labe walked over to Batman. Batman noticed him, and faced him with a mild glare. "Batman, Batman, I never thought I would talk to you face to face." Labe said, keeping his hatred and prejudice at bay. "Here I'm now, Commissioner." Batman said, "I came here to say Humpty thank you for saving our people and these colorful horses I'm seeing around here." Labe strained to utter, as if his pride was trying to choke him. "No need for thanks." Batman stated. "Still, this does not change my opinion about you, Bats. But we'll see what will happen soon. It might change, it might not. I'll be watching you, always." Labe threatened before walking away sullenly. "Well, that went well." Gordon chuckled. Never thought I would ever hear those words come out of his mouth. Very satisfying to see him humbled. "Hetty, I second that. In fact, all of Gotham and the ponies are apparently grateful for what you have done, sir. Look." Alfred mentioned, pointing at the Gothamites and the ponies shouting Batman's name in praise. "Batman! Batman! Batman! Batman!" Yay, they cheered and clapped their hands and hooves together. Squidaloo, Twilight, and the Royal Sisters joined with the heroic trio. "They were applauding you, Batman. You saved them all," the Pegasus filly observed. Batman grew a slight smile from the hearty gratitude and praise he received from them. It was a rare thing in Gotham for Batman to be thanked and upheld continuously, especially by the majority of the police force, but here, it was sincere and true. "You must be the Batman," Celestia said, warmly smiling. Batman turned to see the Royal Sisters giving a slight bow in gratitude and respect for his heroism. He nodded his head in acknowledgement. "It is truly remarkable that the first human from another dimension not only visited our home world, but also saved us, and our world at the same time from its dangerous threat," Celestia said. "And for that, we are eternally grateful for what you have done for us, all of us. I've been desirous to ask you, Dark Knight, are you a watcher of the night by any chance? Since you are a hero dressed up as a bat, I imagined you becoming active, in fighting evil only during the night time." Luna asked. "You could say that." Batman replied. My, it appears we have something in common already. I too am busy during the night having to comfort ponies in their dreams from their nightmares. A task, I'm sure, you would understand." Luna said. "I'm glad you have that job. Nightmares can cause emotional responses from the mind such as fear that can always overtake us when we fall." Batman lectured. "But there is one thing which I'll never forget. Why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves up. A very wise saying, Dark Knight." Luna agreed. "Excuse me for one moment," Batman said. He levitated in the air with his crystal magic, and opened a large portal for all of Gotham to enter through. The city of Gotham was experiencing a new morning at that moment. After they finished their invigorating conversation with the crystal ponies, they all entered back to their home through the portal. However, some of the ponies from Ponyville were curious as to what the human world looked like. Thus, they entered therein with the people before it closed. Batman then flew down, took Scootaloo and Twilight in his arms, and flew to the top of the crystal castle. Luna looked at him with dreamy eyes. What an attractive figure. I should write some letters to him sometime, she said. Everyone looked at her amazed and confused. She blushed in embarrassment. Batman bent down before Scootaloo, and held her head. I want to take the time to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to get to know you ponies and to show me that there is a world where peace and true happiness does exist, including friendship. Since you were the first pony I met, Scootaloo, I will confess that I will miss you the most. You're very courageous and strong. Oh, Batman, thanks, she said while wiping the tears from her eyes. Do you really have to go? Why won't you stay with us? Gotham needs me. Evil will continue to smite it, and it will soon destroy Gotham, if I'm not there to protect it. Batman replied. However, I will come back someday. Really? You will? Twilight asked, smiling widely. Yes, he replied before gazing on the crystal heart on his bat symbol. How did I get this power? How is it I received this magic, while I was trapped in Sombra's dimension? That's because it saw your heart. Cadence said, flying above them. I've seen this so many times before. When a creature's heart is filled with passionate love combined with the mighty willpower to do what is right, especially in a situation where evil threatens to conquer the world, that magic is endowed upon the receiver. Thus, it happened with you, Batman. Batman then contemplated on the new information. I see, he said. He then took a mysterious Joker card from his utility belt, and looked at it. He raised his right arm and shot a beam of magic which turned into a portal half a mile from the castle. I'll miss you, Batman. Thank you so much for everything. I hope you could visit us again. Twilight thanked. Scootaloo nodded her head in agreement. Batman nodded before walking towards the ledge. Wait. Cadence shouted. I never said thank you. Batman stopped and turned his head to Cadence. And you never have to, he replied. Then he jumped from the castle, and opened his cape's wings, to fly toward the portal. He took Alfred and Gordon in his arms via telekinesis. The princesses, the main six, Spike, Shining Armor, Engine Run, and the Royal Guard waved goodbye at them. Bye, Batman. Don't forget to catch any party poopers. Pinky called out, waving her hoof. The others chuckled with her. Twilight, Scootaloo, and Cadence smiled as their hero and friend flew off back home. Batman, Gordon, and Alfred entered the portal before it closed. The blue aurora of the portal then turned into a huge bat symbol, and levitated itself in the air. Batman restarts.
That's all, Zipsters! Like and subscribe.